Futures pointing to a sharply lower open coming out this morning as markets digest the news of a new COVID-19 variant first found over in Africa. Looks like Belgium has is looking at their first case of this as well, popping up over in Hong Kong overnight as well. So we're looking at very negative start to the morning here with travel stocks leading to the downside, oil-related names leading to the downside as well. Crude itself off more than 7% at one point in the pre-market here. We'll have a look at everything travel-related moving to the downside, as I said. Again, this new variant popping up in Africa for the first time over the past couple of days. This actually came out late on Wednesday. They talked about it a little bit throughout the Thanksgiving holiday yesterday. Welcome, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed their U.S. Thanksgiving yesterday. Bond markets tumbling this morning on this news as well, along with, as I said, energy markets down significantly here in the pre-market. Banks are also under pressure on growth concerns, economic growth concerns, down about 3 to 4% for the banking sector. And of course, DD Global has to have more negative news this morning as well. We'll talk about DD moving lower here in the pre-market. It's Friday, November 26, 2021. TraderTV.live starts now. Yeah, there we go. Look at how things stand at this point. Not good. The Dow leading 2.2% to the downside, 1.7 there for the S&P. The NASDAQ a full percent in negative territory at this point. Yeah, crypto's getting hit here big time as well. Ethereum down 10% at this point. Bitcoin 7. There's crude oil. That's actually off the lows for crude, 5.9% currently in negative territory, as I mentioned, right across the board, looking at big time negativity. To start things off this morning, we're going to have a look at some energy names coming up here. I just noticed, yeah, Ethereum, wow, big move to the downside on these fresh COVID-19 related concerns, as we said. Good morning, guys. Arun is in for Sean today. Arun will be back in pretty much ongoing for the next couple of weeks as we get rid of some holidays into the end of the year here. Neil, you're off Monday, Tuesday. So Arun back next week as well. So just before we jump into things here, guys, it's worth mentioning holiday shortened session. That means right out of the gate some housekeeping, I guess. We're going to go right through to 11 as per usual. So our show will be absolutely normal. You'll get a condensed version of Trader Pratt and Miss V from 11 to 12. And then we're going to be back again from 12 to 1. So it's going to be a busy day.
Yes, sir. It should be a wild one here. Wow. Welcome to, I don't know, like last year. So Zoom, just watching that make some power moves. You guys talking about this here in the chat. And Moderna, I made a 300 break. Basically, think about this. Stay at home is absolutely booming. And then you're going to have those travel names getting beat up. Now, I actually took a position in front of CCL here, in front of $18. So it's an even dollar range. And then keep in mind, anytime you have the holiday shortened week and this half day, it's already, you guys know Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving, quite the turkey hangover now in the markets, but you have low volatility, you have low volumes and then high volatility on this day. So you're anticipating that moves are going to be bigger, and that's without this variant news. So when you see some of these small caps or micro caps or low float names start to go, expect that they can move a little bit more than normal. Expect that there might be a little bit slower reaction for bigger names to have bids or offers start to generate. And that's because you do not have as many participants in the market today, and that can exacerbate some of these moves. Whether or not we'll see that as much in the futures, I'll leave that to Arun. But with equities, you definitely have to be a little bit more careful because volatility will be up. Your stops will be hunted a little bit more. You're going to have more slippage when you do have your stop orders, things like that, Arun.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming into the week, coming into today, I was mentioning the last few times I was on, it was like it's going to be, most of the trading is going to be handed off to the junior traders as most guys take the time off, and they're going to make an extended long day or long vacation day into the long weekend and whatnot, and then kind of turn it into a 4 or 5 day kind of ordeal. But now with the market moving the way it is, It's going to get hectic. I imagine some guys have rushed back to take care of business, but just imagine that, or expect that most volume will be somewhat on the light side, but volatility will be high, which means, like Neil said, volumes and movement is going to be that much more. You're going to run further on less volume, which means volatility is high, which means there's trading opportunities to find. We just got to be careful on how we take it, handle the risk, and manage our exits.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting day, to say the least. Was always going to be. Now we have more reason for more movement today, which is good if you're an intraday trader. So we'll take you through the pre-market here, get you set for what is to come potentially at 9:30. Before we go any further, though, let's get over and say good morning to Miss V.
Good morning, team. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I wish you a great trading Friday. Please smash the like button, and let's get it started, Brandon.
Yeah, let's get it started, guys. Lots to discuss heading towards the open here. Under an hour to go. It's all about the new variant. I haven't even seen a name for this thing yet, but apparently it's not good. I even saw the term this morning, vaccine resistant. So very little known at this point, it would seem, on this, but over in Africa is where they found it for the first time, now popping up through Belgium and also over in Hong Kong overnight. So crude oil, big move to the downside. We have travel stocks all down 6 to 10%, as we said, to kick things off. A lot to digest here, guys, as we were saying. Liquidity going to be the big story of the day. Liquidity or lack thereof could provide some outsized moves, to say the least.
Yeah, liquidity is definitely the thing. I've already seen a few cases of it already this morning. Trying to make some trades in that BFRI out there, and thank goodness for smaller lots. And I'm actually noticing it here, specifically in Zoom, right? Like Zoom made this nice break at like 229 here, and everything looks pretty normal. You get this pullback, and then it breaks through a 230 level, and I'm telling you, like, this was a bit of an offer here at 230, and then it goes $2 on nothing, right? Like it went 230 break into 232 here, and absolutely nothing. Like there was no printing. Like really nothing had even happened. The move up when it initially broke 29, like that was legit. Like I saw some actual buyers into that one as I was monitoring it. But yeah, just be very, very careful. Like this can be a situation where if you, for whatever reason, if you're not tracking volume or you don't have access to a level 2, make sure that you got at least one of those things today before you start buying orders out there. And especially, this is a warning to, I never use market orders. I'm going to assume, Arun, I don't know if you ever use market orders. No, Arun, you don't use market orders.
I try not to.
We try not to use market orders because there's a price you don't want to pay. This would be the kind of morning where I don't know that you want market orders out there because it's just the sheer amount of slippage and bad order fills that you might get on a morning like this. It could be tremendous, and we never want to see anyone get caught or get a bad price there. So we hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving, a happy day trading. And the worst thing would be you get this just horrible, horrible fill on low liquidity, only to see things calm down after the market opens up. And then, of course, watch out and note the difference between a New York and a NASDAQ stock. All the NASDAQ stocks will open right at 9:30. New York, that official open can take 30 seconds. Maybe 5 seconds, a minute on some stocks. So a lot of times you want it to settle down. This is definitely that type of a morning where you don't want to rush things. And of course, as I say that, it's like, oh, I just missed an 8 break on that AHPI, so I should have punched that one right away.
Yeah, so the opening is going to be rough. Just because we're down a lot doesn't mean we're going to open right and head down right away. That's not how the game works. Because sometimes what you see in the pre-market, well, not sometimes, generally most of the time what you see in the pre-market is an extension in one direction. In this case, it's an aggressive move to the downside. Looks like futures are catching a bid somewhat around 4,600. You may see a pop off the open. Whether that's held or not, that's a different story. But doesn't mean just because we're down now that the market is going to turn into a bloodbath within the first minute. It could happen, yes, but generally it takes some time for that to happen. Maybe there's a buy, overextension, value purchases come in, push the market up a little bit, and then we lose it, and then we fall off. That's kind of how generally I kind of look at the market. Just because we're down doesn't mean that's how it's going to start the day. So we're going to get started. Brendan's got some stocks, and we're going to go through them and figure out how we can play each stock, whether it's to the upside or to the downside.
Adding fuel to the fire almost on a COVID-related headline here as well. Merck, guys, to the downside. MRK, the first to come out with their COVID-19 pill, if you remember the therapeutic. Here's the headline this morning. The next batch of data that they released here on the efficacy of this pill showing lower, in fact, efficacy than the initial round. So adding to the negativity almost on the COVID side, here's Merck, guys, down 2.3%. But as we said, just because things are down, Arun was just talking about this, doesn't necessarily mean we will continue down. So we just took back 80 there on MRK.
I mean, look, that whole line by Arun is the reason I'm sitting here in CCL long on the first support that I could find, right? Like, obviously, Merck, we already knew that the efficacy wasn't quite as great as nowhere close to the Pfizer, and that had already gotten the stock back into the downside here. So I don't know if this news is quite as bad as individual stock that you might expect. Like, I think if it came out on a different day, you might see this. You might see a bit of a different reaction. It piles into, I guess, the reaction or the overreaction, whatever you want to call it, to the new variant for sure. I just note that it's got support at the 200. So it's wicked down here a couple of times and found support at that 200 period moving average and hard support at 77 anyway. So, from a day trading standpoint, that just becomes an interesting level to me if it ever gets back there again. I wish this was a stock that I was looking at when it cratered at 78, because that's clearly a much better buy the bottom than the barcode that's going on in CCL. Like, I'm sitting in the CCL, it's like 18 to 1820 over and over again, and I'm sitting here in 14s long and doing absolutely nothing. Now, do I think this is going to be some kind of a crazy breakout when you look at these levels here? Nah. The volume is tiny on Merck, and it's going to be tiny across the space. I'm not going to play this one for the breakout. I think this is good news for Pfizer, but then Pfizer is going to be up today again, not because of this, but because everyone's reaction to the new variants, which throws everything out of the water. Like, Pfizer at 53, I'm sort of kicking myself. Like, I've been taking like 10% out every single time it gets to that 50, and then adding back on dips. Well, there might not be a dip this time, and we'll see what happens there. But Merck's more interesting, down 77, 78, those price levels.
Yeah, like you just mentioned Pfizer, and that's actually, I was looking at our list there, and Brendan put up a bunch of different names in the biotech names, or I guess the vaccine names, and I looked at all the charts and I'm like, Pfizer looks like the best chart I can probably work with in terms of movement. The way it's trading makes more sense to me for me to be able to develop levels and work with. So here I am looking at Pfizer going, okay, you know what? They're trying to get through 54. They've gotten through 54, but they really are struggling to maintain some buy strength above 54. So I won't get involved just yet, but I'm curious to see how this market plays below 53.50 on Pfizer. If we can actually find a support bid below 53.50, maybe a sell-off of 50, 60 cents that finds a market bid, then I want to see if I can grab a long there and use like 52 even as your stop. It all depends on how we come down and whether we can actually maintain some strength. If we can, and that's critical, especially on a day like this, it's critical that you see how the markets react around your levels before you step in, because it can get very ugly very quickly, and you could be short getting run over, or you could be long getting run over. So wait to see how this market reacts, especially around key levels, and then you get involved and you take your shots. For me, it's going to be around about 53.50 on Pfizer.
Let's bring in Michael Noss here, chartered market technician from Trade Ideas. It's Friday. Great to see you, Michael. Welcome back. Let's jump into a few ideas here on a higher time frame. We're obviously coming in this morning to a new catalyst in the market that's going to maybe change some of these charts, but give us your take on things that have come back already in this pullback over the past week or so.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's always fun to prepare a whole bunch of symbols the night before, and then you wake up and the market changes them all. But that's the nature of trading, and we kind of adapt and move on. So I figured going into today, before the market opened, it would be a pretty slow day. So we're going to do a little lesson first, and then I'm going to show you some symbols, and we'll see how much those are still going to hold when the market opens. So right away, we're going to talk about gap fills, right? That's one of the things we know that day traders use all the time. It's a nice little kind of one of those self-fulfilling prophecies. A stock comes and fills down a gap intraday. quite often that can act as a support and resistance point. So at Trade Ideas, we have actually built a scanner for that already. And then we have a scanner for daily gaps, large daily gaps. So if we can go right into the first chart, I can give you a visual example of what I'm looking at here. So this is one that I traded myself and actually worked from this new scanner, which was great. You can see I highlighted the gap there. The idea being that fundamental traders, if they miss a move based off of news, if the stock comes back to that same level, they're more likely to try to want to buy and pick it up there, right? I like the stock at $5, but I missed it because it had this news catalyst that caused it to gap. Well, maybe when it comes back to $5, I'll set an alert and I'll buy it there. So often, hopefully, we get these bounces off of them. So I've made a list of these for you guys based off this scanner. Again, if you want a scanner for it, come over to Trade Ideas and we have one built for you. First one is ASTR. This is that spaceship one. It announced that they went into orbit recently. Again, we've had this big gap up and then it's all come all the way down to refill that gap, putting it at prices before the gap. So again, we hope that fundamental traders come in and say, hey, you know, I missed it before the news. Now I get a second chance at the news, and we use that as a support area. So for that, it looks like $10 to me. You know, as long as we're holding over that, I think you're good. Under that, you might need to recess. The next one there is AUTL. Same kind of move, right? We had a big gap on this one's a therapeutic company, so maybe one to watch today with today's news. But the same kind of move. We had a gap from 6 to 7. It took, 2 weeks or so, but it finally filled that gap and put in a pretty bullish day on Wednesday. Next one here is LiDAR. Pretty straightforward. They make LiDAR for self-driving cars and EVs. The EV space in and of itself has been hot recently, and this one actually, again, came and filled this gap that occurred based off some news they put out. And then again on Wednesday, sorry, the holidays got me kind of weird, but then on Wednesday, nice bullish candle right at that support area. Again, what we're hoping is with these gaps is we get an immediate bounce off the support area. And the thing I like about these trades is right where you're wrong. If we continue to trade past the gap, then that's probably where you're wrong and it's time to move out and look for something else. Next one here is an oncology stocks, CRDF. This one not only filled a pretty decent gap there, you can see at the very end of the chart, but I zoomed out on this one a little bit just to show that $5 area is not only that gap support, but it's also just a little bit of support going back as well. So again, as long as you're over $5, I think you're good on this one. Under $5, it's time to get out and reassess. Next one here is Real. And this one has a candlestick pattern on top of it that maybe I'll talk about one of the next weeks if that's what you people want. We're always watching the chat to see what you guys like. But basically, this one had a pretty big gap. Clothing store, retailer, you can see the gap happened on earnings. So whatever they reported for earnings must have been strong. Came back down and filled that gap. And you can see on Wednesday that massive engulfing candle that actually engulfed the last weeks worth of action in a single day. So this is the one that I'm really interested in. $15 I think is your level here. And last but not least is another therapeutic. So again, maybe take a look at this one, this LPTX. Had a big gap from 2 to 250 and then just ran from 2 to 4. Finally came all the way down, filled that gap, and then again a nice green candle yesterday after a little hammer at that support. So that number is about $2. So I'm watching this one as long as we can stay over $2. I think that is an interesting play.
Great stuff, as always, Michael. Yeah, it's interesting when you get different catalysts behind some of these names, but if you dig down just to the pure technicals involved, a lot of them very, very similar on that level, regardless of what we're dealing with. Should be an exciting one. We appreciate your time as always. We'll speak again in a couple of weeks.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
There we go, guys. A few ideas there as far as gap fills are concerned. I mean, on a daily time frame, a lot of those charts and ideas obviously very similar. But when you break it down, even on an intraday time frame, as Michael was saying, those gaps very, very key.
100%. And you know what? I love the line Michael was saying about you do all your preparation and then like the market does this to you in the morning. And I felt the same way. I know we were talking about it before. Like I felt the same way. Like I had an idea of okay, this is usually what the holiday Friday is. I know what I want to look at, some of the names, and everything changes in the morning. Suddenly I'm waking up and it's like, oh, yeah, that's my buying level on Bitcoin. Oh, wait a minute, we just broke 4,000 on Ethereum as well. And then you start looking down the line, because I usually check crypto when I wake up, before even the market sometimes. But anyways, and then you start looking down the line, it's like, oh, okay, this is gonna things have gotten real here. We're gonna have to adjust the plan. And I was even saying in the chat, someone said, did I like a level on Pinduoduo? And my response was, I usually don't, like on this day, usually it's like, be light in the pre-market, don't overtrade, because there's not much happening and you don't want to get trapped. But there's a lot going on, there's a lot moving. And before, I know we're gonna get to upgrades and downgrades, but Rolando, appreciate the super chat here. Great day to add on the dip in AMC, says, and then thoughts on SOPA. Do we think it will go back to 70? So, no. Plainly, like, I do not think the stock is going back to 70. I can't see any catalyst that gets it 6x outside of some kind of a crazy squeeze, or I guess they could always do like a split, a reverse split. But at the end of the day, you saw what happened last week. Well, I guess it was just a few days ago. You saw what happened just a couple of days ago. I think your best case scenario for bullish on these is the more days you're able to hold the flush bottom here and that higher low at like $11, I think the greater likelihood that you can get a push to the upside. And then, you know, the whole idea of one of those low float, or I guess not meme generated, but you know, whatever you want to call it these days, squeezes through like a 16.5 or something like that. But you need to hold this 11 up for the next couple of days. I mean, it's under pressure, but anything that's going to hold its lows today, I guess you give it a bit of a win. But I don't think it's in any stretch going to that $70 range again. I think that's come and gone.
Yeah. Brendan?
Noting, guys, on a day like this, analyst moves not going to be terribly significant because we have another catalyst driving the whole market, right? So I'll look at the board here, upgrades, downgrades on that side. But as I said, there's TJX, there's Nordstrom, some of the retailers, but everything, as you notice here, very, very red right across the board, guys.
Red indeed. It's just one of those things where going back to, what was the stock we were just looking at? SOPA. Going back to SOPA, just keep an eye on, I'm going to pull up the chart here. I was looking on one of the other charts here. Keep an eye on the IPO price, the price that it opens at. That always brings the biggest batch of volume. So for me, when I look at volume, that price really matters. And you'll notice if we go back, let me pull this to a 15 so we can actually see how far back. The IPO price where it halted and opened and halted somewhere around 1575 or something like that right here. It looks like the opening was around 16 or 1575 or something like that. Since that point, we have not been able to get back. Since we got below it, we've been struggling around 16. Volume is sitting around 16, which makes perfect sense. So for the time being, it looks like 16 will be your marker on whether this market has a chance or this stock has a chance to go up or not. And given that it's sitting at 12 and is refusing to move away from 16 to the upside, I think you're going to have a hard time getting this to keep on going. Now, we are kind of working the 10s as well. If we can get through the 10s, then there's a nice move to the downside. But keep an eye on 16 because I think that's the level that really matters in terms of volume and how this thing has traded. Neil, did you want to mention anything about that Cardano? I know there was a super chat about Cardano.
I saw from Dominic, and I know it's oddly enough like that deadline for when you're not delisting in the U.S. I mean, you can't really invest in it. And the regulatory issues that they're going to be having. That deadline's the 26th, which is my birthday. I think it'll be an interesting buying opportunity till down there because what'll likely happen is you will get some, I guess, overweighted price action to the downside. And I could pull up ADA for you. But I'm not going to. I'm already looking at a couple of other things here. I actually was going to talk next about that BFRI, and we'll get to that in a quick second. But the more important thing is I think it could be a little bit of a buying opportunity up until the 26th of December, and at that point you might see a bit of a recovery. But you've got to keep in mind today, especially, right? Like a lot of the movement to the downside is. I think it's that panic low vol selling, right? Like you didn't have the buyers stepping in today. I think that's why either futures will go down more than anticipated. I think that's why CCL goes down more than anticipated. It's just you have not as many buyers that are ready to step in the overnight. A little bit of panic selling and some of that happening, and that's across the board. But I was sort of looking at, and I'll do this for you guys here because what I was watching was give me this level on Bitcoin, which had been the one I was waiting for, which was this 53. This was that flush that we had back in September, like that big, massive, like 10. It was actually over 10%, like 15% flush at 53. It was on a good break consolidation. So I was always sort of looking for this to be a buy point there, and that's just a 100-period moving average. It's just a bloody default on Binance here. I don't really care too much about that, but it ends up being that bounce price as well. So I tend, for lack of a better, sort of notion, to look at like these second retracement levels when it comes to sort of buying crypto. I think that's the same thing that you're doing with the notion that the catalyst of the end of the year, Dominic, could be that, okay, well, now that that's come and gone, you might get a bounce at that particular point. So it could be one of those, if you're looking to swing, you get into it in front of the end of December, and then you're trying to catch a bounce in early next year.
Look at a couple of the semiconductor stocks here, guys. They're all, in negative territory, kind of heading lower as a result of this news. But, if you look at AMD, for example, here, if you remember back on Wednesday, a huge day for AMD, right back to highs on Wednesday as the NASDAQ kind of led things higher. But here we are back to 154. There was this news on India's Tata talking about a potential $300 million semiconductor assembly manufacturing deal that could include orders from the INTCs, the AMDs of the world. So, giving a little bit of help to this space that is in so desperate need of some inventory, as we've been hearing about over the past couple of months. But it's worth noting, even the AMD is down 2.3% here.
Yeah, but look at AMD though. Look at where it is. It's at 154, but if you go back to the 18th or so, we've been chugging along in this range for a while, and then we kind of broke up top. And as the market, like most markets, most stocks, and the market as a whole took off on the 22nd when the Fed nomination was confirmed, and then kind of trapped everybody and went short and then kind of extended. As we come back into that range, there's a chunk of volume left here, whether that's the futures, whether that's a stock. Going back to that little move from the 18th through the 22nd, there's going to be some action here. You're seeing the stock kind of reacting to the volume that is sitting there between 150, I want to say 158 through 154-ish through 158. There's going to be a chunk of volume. And here we are sitting in that range. And it's not surprising that it's down 2.5%. It is surprising, however, that it is not down more than 2.5%. So it's decent that they're willing to resist it here, but it is somewhat relatively stronger compared to other tech names in the market at the moment. So keep an eye on how this trades here. There could be a nice little fade here if it's, say, gets up to 155, 156, starts to rotate a little bit, meaning it's starting to lose a little bit of steam, and then you just kind of flip short and see if you can actually try to play off of this range and go back down. But given how it's trading and where it's trading, you do need a little bit of action before you take that shot on the short side. But to the downside, what do you have? You have 152. There's some support here from the 23rd before you fell off. So 152 would have to be the level that needs to be cleared for us to actually take a shot towards 150. So we're kind of stuck in a range that is somewhat wide. There's some action above. There's a little bit of action down below. I'm not sure what I would do with this. I would, like I mentioned, I would just probably, if anything, fade off the 156 if we get there and we get a little slowdown. But apart from that, it's kind of a tricky trade based on the way it's looking.
Yeah, and it's not too dissimilar from, I guess, what an NVIDIA looks like here. Although I want to be stink bidding somewhere today, right? Like I kind of feel like this is usually the type of morning. And stink bid, by the way, just means you're trying to pick up a long in what you think is support at a level that you don't think is likely to be hit, but it would require a big move in the market or just in that individual stock. And I'm just looking back at this 308 to 310 resistance level on NVIDIA, which has turned into the recent support the last week. So I want to be buying in front of it on any kind of a dip that we do get. Is it going to happen? I don't know. I mean, at that point, do I really think we're dropping $10 in NVIDIA? Like, it could happen. I've seen that type of move happen at the open when you have lower liquidity. So I want to be ready for it just on the off chance that this does come in. And speaking of NVIDIA, speaking of chips, like today could be a day for, and I haven't even looked at Global Foundries. And I'm going to sit here casually hoping that it's down more than 2%. It's actually 3% right now. And this is a name that I've been looking to get into. And again, like it's very, very similar. I kind of, without knowing I was going to be looking at this, I kind of expected to see last week's support level give you some stink bid opportunities down around 62, 63. And that's what I would be looking for. So, it's whether it's NVIDIA for the day trade, I think. Global Foundries, a name that I should have bought on the IPO. I didn't. I'm an idiot. But anyways, you can look for these kind of opportunities on dips. And finally, it looks like the CCL for me, which I've been in since earlier, like really early. Like I said, I almost never trade these, early in the pre-market, and this was down so far, and it immediately had some levels I liked. It was making a break above 825. It then had this lower high at 18, and it was down like 10%, which is pretty crazy there. So I actually even dipped in more when it retested 18. It finally broke that 18 and a quarter. I'm, as usual, quarters, 50s, the line. So I'll be taking some out here probably a little bit more aggressively, like if I can get like 35 to 50s, and then 50s and higher up to 75, all the way up to like a 19 even or so. But let's just see if we're going to get a bit of a recovery. I just noticed that Zoom had pulled back about $3 or $4 at the same time that CCL made a bit of a pop. So it feels like some of the travel names got a little bump, and some of the stay-at-homes just dropped a little bit. Just keep in mind, volumes in some names aren't doing much. CCL, 2 million in volume. Plenty of volume in this one.
Liquidity high on some of those travel names as well. I was just watching Alpha Pro Tech, which is another healthcare equipment maker, APT. That was a huge mover if you go back to the beginning of the pandemic, way back March of last year. There's also this AHPI that we'll keep on watch as well. Let's get into the watch list, guys. If you're looking for the link, that is it, where you can find it every single morning, absolutely free before we come on at 8:30 for you. Ms. V can help you out in the chat if you do need that link as well. I can't take my eyes off some of these things. They're moving around so crazy. Let's talk about these travel stocks. I mean, we mentioned a few already, but as a blanket, you can kind of put it over top of the cruise operators, the airlines, all of them going to be down between that kind of 5 and 10% mark on this news this morning. The most important thing when we kind of group things together like this is kind of drilling down to 1 or 2 or maybe 3 at the most, guys, and finding your opportunities.
And I looked through the charts because on that watch list, Brendan's got a bunch listed there. And I went through each and every one of them, and they all almost look very similar in how they're trading. So I'm looking at NCLH because I feel like that's probably the best opportunity because it seems like there's a little bit more trading than the others on NCLH, and the chart looks somewhat better. So I'm looking at NCLH as a potential move below 20 as I get this chart loaded. So yeah, below 20, it's kind of flirting. As it fell from 22, it's flirting around 20, and right now it's at 20.5. So if we can get through 20, maybe there might be a short there. To the upside, if it gets above 21, stays above 21, you may have a chance towards 22. But again, the risk is $1 through 20. That means to get up to 22. In a market like this, it all depends on, again, how the open comes in, right? So I'm looking at NCLH, and I'm also looking at Boeing. Boeing actually is moving around. I was actually surprised Boeing is at like $196 because I don't trade these names too often. So when I see it at these prices, I'm like, well, that's new. I'm looking at Boeing. What was I looking at? Oh yeah, through the bottom of 196 as well. It's right now at 196.65 by 196.76. Level 1 prices, volumes 852,000, and it's pre-market. So, I mean, it really doesn't mean a whole lot, but if you can get below 196 and stay below 196, I think there might be a trade there on Boeing as well. So, looks like 2 shorts, potentially 20, below 20 on NCLH and below 196 on Boeing. But both of them, you need to, again, I cannot stress this enough, both of them, you need to see how this market opens because it could easily go right through, snap back, and take off to the upside. So just be very careful. These are not breaks. You've got to confirm the movement and the volume before you go for these shorts because it can get dangerous based on how the market has traded in the pre-market.
Yeah, I mean, big time. And I think I showed you guys CCL there, and sort of the thesis for that long is if it holds support, it's just the risk to reward so good. And I look at AAL too, and look at these, look at the level that you're essentially trying to break down through in this pre-market here. And this has also done 2.5 million shares pre-market, so good volumes on American. 18 and a quarter is now well, I mean, it's not really a triple bottom because we've broken 18.25, but the break of 18 went like 4 cents. So it breaks this level, which was, I mean, obviously a big level going back to the beginning of the year that got us up to a breakout to 27. That's a 50% move right there. And then we break down, hold 18. Like, look at this. I'm kind of kicking myself, right? Like, this will happen. Like, CCL, I trade it because CCL is just, it's one during the pandemic was a great day trading stock. It's the first thing that comes to my mind. But then I look at AAL here. And this was right at that 18, though, like breaking 18, going a couple of pennies, and then consolidating, and then broke back up the even, and gives you almost a cleaner trade. Like, you don't even have to break these highs, and you got yourself some scalp winners here. So AAL's on my radar, but it's the same type of trade as CCL, and they're going to go lock in step. So I can't say to myself that, I'm going to sit here and just go long every single one of these. It doesn't really make a heck of a lot of sense to do that. Like, there's almost no chance that if I get my targets in CCL, then AAL, if you took the same long, they're probably going to work out. And if they get blown out on CCL and it breaks the low of the day, then AAL is probably going to break the low of the day too. So just focus on one, pick yours. I know Arun's decided he likes NCLH. I like the pre-market setup on AAL, even though I was already in CCL at the time. And the only reason I didn't take this is because I was in CCL.
He's trying to bounce right now, guys. Let's shift over to the energy group. I'll show you crude oil here first. If we could grab my screen. There we go, guys. Heading southbound once again. It held briefly there, 73.5 initially, but looks like we're breaking back to the downside. Yeah, crude oil, this is the F contract, so we got to go out to the beginning of next year. Crude oil down 6% to start. So any of the oil-related firms going to be under pressure today?
So let me come to my screen. I'm just going to put up some futures contracts. I've changed the chart, though. I'm going to use the e-signal chart for this one, just so we can see a little bit better. This is the January contract, the F contract that Brendan's talking about here. And this is what you're seeing. We were sitting around 78 going into pretty much the, the close of yesterday's mid-session, because the NYMEX markets, not just NYMEX, but Globex contracts somewhat trade. They have some wacky hours during holidays, so they are open, but they're barely traded. So there was some trading done yesterday, and then it kind of just fell off the 78, cleared the 75, which was holding for a couple days, and then here we are now, kind of bouncing off the 72.50. You have to wonder what's going to happen around the 75 all the way up to 76 if we were to get back up there, because there's going to be a ton of resistance. A ton of volume sitting there in front of, it looks like in front of and just after 75. So just be very careful. In the event that the crude does rally, let's just say off the open, comes off 73.50, goes up to 75, you may have an opportunity to fade the contract in that zone, as long as it kind of sets up in some fashion. There might be a trade there on crude as well. Keep in mind, crude contracts, they're per contract, I believe it's $10 a penny. Yeah, I believe they're $10 a penny per contract for you guys to take a shot, and then obviously on the S&P side, it's $50 a point as well. Let me just go over the few ES contract. We're looking at the December contract on the futures here as well, and you see the movement. It's been very clear where this volume is coming from based on the way the chart's trading. It's right here inside of this kind of 70-ish through even. We spent a lot of time above it, then we kind of spent a decent amount of time below it for a couple days. Nice little range trade for the last couple days, and now here we are kind of breaking above on a holiday session and then getting absolutely wrecked through on the move after we come back on a shortened day. Well, where is the volume going to sit? And that's all that matters to me. Where is the volume going to sit? It's going to be right here. If we were to come back up towards 50, 46.50, which is almost 30 points away, if we were to do that, you've got to look at possibly fading this, because that's what I'm going to look to do. So if we can get there, maybe a fade through 46.40, I'm willing to put up more risk than I normally would. So I'm willing to put up at least 40 points here. If we get to 40 and we start to slow down, I'll say 40 all the way up to 80 and change. So that range, I'm going to look to fade if we get the rally. It all matters on how we get there and how much volume comes through, but there could be a potential trade there right through that 50 and on the resistance side. Now, if we break through, that's a big game changer, because that means we got through the support levels, we got through the volume that would have held us and should have held us through the bottom. That means we now have that region as support. There might be a bounce through the top afterwards. But for now, though, until that happens, I'm going to argue that there's going to be a short potential here around that 46.50 back towards the downside. I would actually prefer a move to 46.50 versus a move towards 4600, because 4600 is just an unknown, because it could open up. Yes, some stops were taken out in the pre-market, but it could just really kind of trap through, go down, come back up. That kind of movement is kind of very hard to read, given that the market has already tested that level and gone through that level. I'd rather see 46.50, because I know that's a level that we haven't seen since we kind of got through it. So I'd rather see whether we can still get some resistance up here, maybe a fade towards 46.80.
it's mic drop. Like I just listen to him when he talks about the futures because I love those levels. And I think you're definitely right about that. Like if we get to that 46 and break it, I'd be a little bit concerned. Instead I come to some of these smaller cap names. It's HPI, which I am in. I just wanted to quickly show, like this is the breakdown that I should have had at 850. It broke this level on volume at about 820. And I've now shorted it a couple of times here in that 840 range in front of the 50 to 55, taking some out in front of the 815 range, and then going to take some out in front of this low here, about 780, which was the early pre-market support. It breaks that, could be headed back down to 7. This is, I want to say, all of these small low float names, their floats are even tinier and tinier, the ones that get on our watch list here. So always tread lightly. Like I always have a stop, and they get tighter and tighter. And when a stock moves like $2 in the pre-market, my stop here is literally 15 cents, right? Like actually a little bit less than 15 pennies, which doesn't seem like, it seems like that's too tight, but that worked certainly the rest of this week. And I'm going to continue with that because when these start to go to the upside, they can run you over like an absolute freight train. Like, BFRI, when that took out the top, it was absolutely wild. So you just be careful with trading some of these names. They can move a heck of a lot.
Negativity coming back into DD Global this morning. This is not surprisingly COVID related, but here we go. Here's the headline this morning. Chinese regulators apparently pressuring or asking very nicely for the company to delist from U.S. markets, the New York Stock Exchange. Obviously, this story doesn't seem to want to go away. We topped out a little bit there, 780, guys, but back to recent lows for DD.
This is an absolute and utter mess. Like, there's got to be a lot of shareholders that are just like, what in the actual hell is going on here? Right? Like this is an IPO that clearly probably should have never come to market under the conditions that it did. There were warnings that maybe they shouldn't come to market because regulations were going to get handed down. Oops, trade for 3 days, and then exactly that happens. Now, the only reason this stock is not at its all-time low at about 685 here, or even down more than 6% that you're seeing, is a couple of ways that this delist could happen. Like one, it just straight delisted and then move over to Hong Kong. And then the other one, which was interesting that I read, which it doesn't seem like that would be that likely, but they could go private. And then there would be a chance that that could actually occur at the list price, which, the IPO listing was at $14. So I guess that, like, hanging out for some hope along those lines, I suppose, is why it's not down more, because I fully expected to log into the platform after reading that headline and see DD have already broken 685 and be heading towards $5. We haven't seen that happen here today. I still look at the previous support at $8 and say to myself, if this stock even tries to rally to $8 today, that's a fade, man. Like, that's the only thing. That's the only trade I got that I can sort of lean into, is if it comes into $8, it's a fade into that range. You've got cover to some of these lower highs, 820 or so, and if it breaks a 750 bottom, it's not even SSR, so you can actually hit that bid. So it's pretty simple. Like, I wish it was more complicated, but it is short into 8, 750 breakdown, right? It's about as easy as it gets from an execution standpoint. But that's all I can figure with DD. For the long term, I wouldn't be making that gamble, but I'd have to read up and try to figure out how likely it is that they could actually take it private because it's government forced. Would they actually be able to take it private at that $14? I'm sure even putting odds on that would be a difficult thing. That's probably the only reason it's not down further.
Yeah, I'm not going to look at DD. I actually not a fan of the chart. Yes, there's obviously news and whatnot, but I have another stock that I want to pay attention to that is a Chinese name, PDD. Man, it is got quite the range on it here. I was looking at it, I think it was around 69 or something like that. Here it is at 73 after taking off through 70. Quite volatile. I believe there was an earnings miss or something like that. You add some market volatility, you add some news across the pond there, and you get a lot of volatility to trade with. So here we go. 78 is where I'm looking at for potential resistance here. 78 going through 80, so that could be a nice little fade. Given the way it's trading, they're probably going to find a nice little bid around 70 going on down. If we take out the low, that could open things up. So right now, where it's at, there's not a trade there, but there could be potential trades about $4 or $5 higher up in the 78 area. Because again, we spent a couple days trying to work through these 78s, couldn't get it. needed news to get through it. So here we are back down through the bottom there. And if we can get there, that'd be a nice little fade. It seems like a lot of these stocks do want to run up a little bit right now, which is perfectly fine because that kind of relieves a little bit of the pressure off the open and opens the door for potential little fade if we can get to some nice levels to work with. So I would actually appreciate a move to the upside, and another $4 or $5 to the upside. Even though I call for it, I can't find a way to get into it. But I would like to fade this around 78, going up through 80.
Them briefly to start things off here, but some of the vaccine stocks getting quite the boost this morning on this news again. Moderna above 300 instantly this morning. We also have Pfizer, the guys looked at in depth there for you. If there was, a trade or an opportunity, where would we look today, guys?
Well, I mean, I should have just taken long Moderna 300. Like that's one of those, like I used to have these old rules for a day like today, and then you just got to throw them out the water when you see something like that. I'm looking at Pfizer right now, just because I think it'll have some interesting dip buy opportunities. And I look at sort of that previous peak that it had here at 53, and I just say to myself, if we get down here like 52, 75, 53, I'm looking stink bid on a Pfizer. That up 6%. I think the reason why I like Pfizer is it's a double whammy. The bad news for Merck is good news for Pfizer. The scare on the variant is good news for Pfizer. So they have like a couple of reasons why I think they're going to be a little bit strong today. Maybe hold up. If there's a reversal here, I think they might hold up a little bit better than Moderna, which is kind of already gone parabolic a little bit here. And I like that 53 area if we can get back into it. To sort of double dip here, to show you what I'm talking about with Moderna, if it'll even do that. See, I typed New York by accident. And there you go. Like, it's just that 300. This is what the 300 break looked like. And admitted, this is like right after 8 o'clock, but that's pretty clean. It actually tested, pennies lower and then just shot. So at this particular point, like I look at where I'd be buying the dip on this and saying to myself, okay, well, if it dropped $10 from here, would I really want to support it at that 300 level? That's kind of a pretty big drop. It's very close to the back to the 50 period. So I feel like if it were to really extend, you sort of look at the 50 period just above that 320 mark, and it might run into some resistance. You had some previous floors down here, 17 to around 17, 18. And then you got the 50 period at 21, 22. So that's why I don't love the breakout. The high of the day right now sits at about 315 and change. So I don't love the breakouts because they run right into that zone. So I do prefer Pfizer if I can catch it down at 52.75 to 53. Moderna, I just feel like I missed the boat on a 300 break and not one that I want to be chasing this high.
Yeah, a lot of these names, you don't want to chase them because there could be a nice little rotation, meaning whatever direction it's going in, it could spin back around. Because the market's actually just extending whatever move it had, and if it were to kind of overextend, then you're going to see some sell-offs happen, and things that were going down are going to start going up, and things that are going up are coming back down. And one of the names I was looking at was NVAX. NVAX, a nice little move through this 210, kind of working through the bid, and we were trading towards 216 when I actually looked at it. And here we are as low as 211 and something, and now we're trading at 213. So I am still looking for a potential long here. Right through this 210. But I'm going to wait to see how this market trades because it does look like a lot of the names. I saw the Pfizer stock rotating as well. I saw some other names. You saw PDD take off to the upside. I'm starting to see futures creep back up towards 25/30. We're not at 30, but we got a size like 29 or 28 or something like that. So you are seeing some rotation happening there. So I'm going to wait for the open. No moves on my part until the open. Probably the first maybe 5 minutes, unless I really see something. But first 5 minutes, I would say, before I get involved in anything. But I'll mark some stuff off. NVAX is one of them. Through 210, I'm willing to go down as low as 208/207. I've still got to kind of narrow that down. But for now, I'm looking to see whether this area around that 210 can hold for potential long. But I would appreciate whatever stocks that have been going up, please come down. Whatever stocks that have been going down, please come up. That actually activates some trades and levels to work with. Yep. It's better that way to kind of get that relief instead of just going in the same direction. Because at that point, you can't get it and you can't step in because you got to be worried about the counter move. So kind of a relief move in the opposite direction would help the situation, and hopefully we get that off the open.
Let's go to a group that is, for the most part, trading higher, guys, and those are the stay-at-home stocks, if you will, the Netflix of the world, the Roku of the world, Peloton, even TDOC I saw was up significantly. We came in this morning kind of talking about the fact that it felt like March of last year again with all these names Big moves. PTON, 8%, guys. Just trying to get back to highs here from the pre-market. I mean, we're into a choppy mess on the daily chart, though, for Peloton. As I said, there's Netflix, there's Roku, a whole bunch of these moving higher.
Yeah. Let me just say something about Piton real quick. Piton doesn't have the same luster that it did the first time around. The first time around last year, when things got hot, Piton was the go-to fad item that everybody wanted to do spinning at home, and now they've done, like, I think they can do workouts and whatnot. And on top of that, subscription. Now it's a subscription-based system as well. It doesn't have the same kind of luster it did. So are you going to have the same kind of movement? Probably not, because I feel like a lot of people have adjusted. It takes time to adjust, and people have adjusted. First time around, people didn't adjust, so they just went after the first thing that was available, which was Piton to work out at home. Now you have Nautilus. I've seen so many other bikes that Life Fitness has some that do very similar things. So are you going to get the same kind of movement? I'm going to say no. Does Piton keep going up? Maybe, but the chart's not the greatest, like you mentioned, Brendan. There's like levels stacked on top of levels. There's levels to the downside. There's levels to the upside. We get into 48. Then you got to worry about the volume all the way up to 50. You get past 50, then you got to worry about 51. It's not the best of trading stock to trade with. There is a nice little move, maybe down towards 45. That's potentially there. But again, you're restricted in how much you can actually make off of this in terms of pennies, right? What are you going to make? Maybe $1, $1.50 if you put up $1 or so. There's probably better stocks out there. I would argue that their time is better spent elsewhere than in this case, especially as day traders. Maybe as an investment, maybe you can kind of argue something. And again, I don't know what the argument there is, but maybe you can argue something. But as a trader for volatility, I'm not sure this has got that kind of same kind of move that you're going to get or expecting from last year.
I mean, up the most of all of these. I mean, Teladoc's great, up at 8%, and it had that $100 level that was certainly a good one. So I'll be happy to see that go up because I finally added it to my list a little bit back. And look, Zoom is the one up like 11% here and just absolutely crushing through some levels. So, you already made this bottom here at 196. We talked about that earlier in the week. And then look at the nice gap up right past that previous support level, right into that previous support level of 230. And that's where we're trying to sit here. So if you're looking, and Moderna was one where you're chasing a little bit here with Zoom. If you look at this break, just keep in mind that 230, if you go way back on the daily chart, is a bit of a significant level. So if Zoom takes this out, you got about $2.50 worth of risk to that 230 level. And then if that's a rollover failure, well, it kind of sets you up for the other side of the trade, which would be like a break of 230 with a $2.50 risk. So it's sitting right in the pocket for a good level on Zoom. While this was happening, guys, this ISPC, which is what a nonsense. It's insane. Like, I bought it off 17, got like a quick little scalp trade, and then came into this 16 level, and I probably had too quick a trigger on this because I got in, got out when it broke 16 here and took that hit. I was like, what am I even doing? And then when it retested down here, boom. I mean, I didn't catch this break. I mean, congratulations if you caught that one. And then it retook 18 and has found support at $18. I just took the 19 break going into the open. We have about 7 minutes until the open. So I usually, at this time of the day, I'm always going to try and scalp some out for 50 cents almost every single time. And then I would put a tighter stop on this. If it failed, broke, if this was earlier in the day and maybe on like fewer shares, I'd be thinking about all the way down to 18 and go dollar for dollar. But because the nature of this morning, I don't want to get caught, like I said, chasing anything at that top too high because the pullback could be like this could be at $16, $17 just by an absolute blink of the eye there, guys. So I'd be watching out for that one carefully. I am in the long. I like it. It's fine. I got some more of that AHPA out because it just went to 750. So I guess I can hit one of these keys. I'll do it for Brendan. Look at that one. AHPI, because he's the one that brought that one to my attention this morning. But I just took 50 pennies on that one to the short side. Zoom right at that high of the day as we speak.
Let's talk about Rivian, because why not? Tesla even moving around. There's still other things to deal with this morning as well, guys. Rivian with news. Amazon backed Rivian to the downside this morning. The R1S, which is the SUV version. I don't know if there's a picture in here. No, there isn't. It's the SUV version of their vehicle, delayed further. So they came out actually aftermarket back on Wednesday talking about these delays. For the SUV. So down here, I mean, the whole market's down, obviously, but 4.2%. We're back to that low that we hit going back a couple of days to the beginning of the week, 107, 106 area.
Yeah, that price you're going to have to keep an eye on. I mentioned this for SOPA, is that opening price, the day that the IPO goes off, it was 106.75. I remember that. And we have been holding well in front of that. There's a ton of volume that gets executed at that price. So of course there's going to be resistance or support if whether you're above or below it. This market does not want to go immediately below that 106.75. It's going to have to grind through. If it gets below, then you're going to see that marker act as resistance to the upside. So as long as we stay above it, there's going to be support there around that 106.75. You can argue there's going to be some flexibility. So I'm going to say 106 even will have to get taken out before we get to the downside, before we can get actually some movement to the downside. But until that point, there's going to be some support there. So just be aware, if there's a setup on the long side, maybe you might be able to take a shot to the buy side. Now, before I hand it off to Neil there, somebody was asking about imbalances. Here we go, guys. Largest imbalances, surprisingly, it's not that big. Pfizer, 930K to the buy side, EDU sell, 900K to the sell side. That's it. Pfizer on the buy side and the EDU on the sell side. Everything else, one is a sell side, 700K. You're not getting the same kind of volume that you would expect for a market that's down this much. That could be a reason why, it's a holiday shortened weekend, or a holiday shortened day. We're closing at 1 p.m. here, North American markets. 1 p.m. Eastern time is the closing time instead of 4. So we are closing early today, so that there might be some movement towards the end of the day, but it does seem like the open's going to be somewhat quiet, at least on the imbalance side. On the volatility side, well, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, so I mean, look at when it comes to Rivian, that 106.75, that's the level. That's all it is. I think you can be long in front of that and that alone, pretty much. And when that goes, watch out below. I got to check to make sure we have pay for shorts there because I forgot. Sometimes we don't have them for free. But someone asked about Longeveron, so LGVN very quickly with 4 minutes to go. This is down like 17%, but it's still at the top end of this range. And if you look at the previous double top that it had, that was at about $35 with a bit of a lower high crest at $33.50. I know the $33.50 because that was the short that I had on Wednesday, and it was a good price. So I'm looking at this bottom right here, which is exactly at that price, and it kind of gives you this look of take out this low at about 33 to 33.50, and then that 35 can kind of be your stop. This could absolutely crater, and I would worry here that if there's so many eyeballs on so many other names and so many other sectors, especially some of these small caps that are running right here, that Longeveron might not have the buyers, especially on the half day. So I'm taking this one to the short side. It's a dangerous short, so always have an out. Mine is 35 if it triggers the bid, triggers on that bid. Brendo, you've got another one, a good old Canadian company.
Yeah, we'll go back to the early days of COVID here. There's iSpecimen, there's that AHPI on the list this morning. I didn't put this one on simply because there's a lack of volume. It was pretty thin in the pre-market here. We did get a run up to 750 for APT. They make healthcare equipment. If you go to a daily chart, 8 and then 850 are the clear levels. If you go back far enough, we're up into months ago levels once again. We're trying to hold at 650 right now, which is that last little ledge. But if we do break to the downside through 650, this thing was trading at 5 going back to Wednesday, guys.
All right. People were asking about the imbalance locator, make it larger so you can see it. Here you go, guys. Take a look at that. Hopefully that one you can see. I've kind of made it much larger there. Pfizer actually getting bigger on the buy side here. 1 million shares now, almost 1.1 million shares. So keep an eye. I just want to throw this out there before we kind of get going. The size is how much is left that needs to be done. Paired value is how much has already been matched to the other side. So the total imbalance is about 1.5, of which 500,000 has already been matched with another seller. 1 million still needs to be done. And so you got a 1 million share buy imbalance at the moment for Pfizer.
Yeah, I just took up that ISPC. Remember I said it was going to be a relatively tight stop. With only 2 minutes to go, I don't want to get caught in a reversal at the open, so that's why the tight stop there. HPI I did have to the short side, and of course Zoom's going to do it. Like, give me a break, Zoom. Yeah, there's not a ton of liquidity. When it broke that 232.50, you got to be pretty aggressive to try to catch these breaks when it took out the high of the day. It's already up at 236, so already zooming to the upside. I guess that's just about as ugly a pun as it gets. I'm still in Carnival. It's found a bit of a bottom here, which I like. The volume is pretty... come on, now you don't want to load. The volume's been pretty good. It's been holding up this higher low at 18 the entire time. It's got a low of 17.85. That's where I want to have my stop. This is one of those mornings where you can anticipate that maybe you get wicked out of some trades, but when you're going against the grain, with the concerns we have with the new, I guess this new variant and whatnot, then I don't mind too much there. I think the risk to reward is fine. If I get wicked out of this trade, I'm not going to be bothered by it too much there. And then I'm looking at DD. I know you're not going to be looking at DD, their room, but I am looking at DD in front of that $8, and if it breaks 750 to the downside. So going to be watching for that one right at the open, under some strain again.
Yeah, so anybody who was wondering, because they just said NVIDIA just popped to the buy side. Anyone that was wondering, probably an imbalance. I'm trying to find it right now, but there's at 928, usually there's an update. I thought it was 925, but there might be an update at 928 from NASDAQ for an imbalance. So a lot of moves on NASDAQ stocks here off of an imbalance most likely. As we get into the open, I think we're almost open there, Neil.
Yeah, well, under 30 seconds to go. That is a big spike. Sizable one if you're watching Moderna as well. That also broke through the high at the same time that Zoom and Teladoc did. So it's right into that 200 period, so it's right at 50 period moving average. And of course, previous resistance as well. Miss V is on the bell. She's in green. Oh man, we're gonna need that today. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And there we go, we are open now, and immediately, that's a nice move on the ISPC. I mean, Moderna, as I'm watching here, actually just took out a fresh high at 320. That's absolutely booming to the upside, is Moderna. I want to see if it does hold the higher low at 307. Still in CCL, it's managing to hold that bottom. See, the thing that would concern me is that you get that big move to the upside on some of those stay-at-home names. I think that CCL would be cratering, but it's actually managing to hold 18 for the time being.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm looking at my screen here. I'm looking at my alert list, and there's nothing going off. For a stock market that's this aggressive, I'm surprised that there's nothing going on. But I am keeping an eye. Actually, no, that's not a good stock. Zoom actually popped off, not on the radar, but actually in just terms of movement overall. Let me pull up the chart for Zoom here. It's trading at 232 right now. It kind of broke through. Once the chart loads, come on chart, we got to go NASDAQ here. Once the chart loads, you'll see that it kind of got through that 232, which was hesitating. It was hesitating in the pre-market. So the way it's trading above it, is it something I can trust? Because technically this would be a breakout trade. But if this market were to stay open and flip back down, because it got as high as 236, flip back down to 231. Now, if we can stay down here, there might be a failed move through the top, but I'm going to keep an eye on this. Like I said, I'm not getting involved until I see at least 5 minutes worth of movement. Obviously, that means you're going to miss some stocks. That's bound to happen. As I say that, though, NVAX might be actually setting up to the buy side.
Yeah, and speaking, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, I'm done.
No, I was going to say, speaking of missing some stocks, this is what happens when the liquidity is low. Longeveron breaks that bottom. I don't get it in on the way down. I actually catch my orders out there on the way back to the upside because it was not aggressive enough apparently. So 32.70 to the short side. It goes all the way to 31. I already told you guys I like that 35 level, so I'll give it a few bucks here to that 35 level, and we'll see what happens. But CCL just took out the bottom. So interestingly enough, when you talk about these things wicking out, this is CCL, which is your I guess reopen trade going to the downside, and then Zoom, which you think would be the other direction, just pulled back in $8 from the bottom. So I mean, Zoom going, they're both heading to the downside, which is pretty much the exact opposite of what I would have expected, and that's why I'm gonna have stops instead. I don't mind getting wicked out on some of these positions because at the end of the day, you want to just make sure that you don't get blown out in the morning. And whoops. From Zoom, I want to go back to that AHPI because that just made a minor pop. It went all the way down to 750. I got some 790s to the short out there, and now going to look to rinse and repeat at that same 850 price.
Yeah, and that's what you're seeing. Zoom flipping around. This is okay. So there's two tails to waiting, right? One, 232 break on Zoom could have been nice if you had taken it in the pre-market, but then here you go right after the market opens, it kind of just falls right apart. Flip side is you wait. So in this case, you avoid this mess of being long on a stock that's going to flip to the short side. The flip side is, well, NVAX. Long around that zone we were thinking, around that 210, 212 probably could have set up. And here it's at 218.5. So you're going to miss some. you're going to be saved from some, and you just got to live with the decision that avoiding this is probably the best way to go until the market settles in. And to be fair, the settlement doesn't have to take that long. It could take a few minutes just to kind of get some movement and get some volume, avoid getting flushed through, and then you kind of step in and take some shots. Now I'm looking at Boeing going through 196. That's a trade we were looking at. Futures coming back towards that 40 marker. Remember, anything above 40 that slows down, I'm willing to short all the way up to 80. So 40-point range there. Well, it's going to be about more than probably 45 points in range. So it's going to be a wide range, but I'm perfectly okay taking that shot there. I'm going to keep an eye on Zoom because this trap right off the top, that's going to be a great potential short here for it to keep on going. And that's the kind of reversal we were looking for, right? Stocks that were going up are going to flip back down. Stocks that were going down are going up.
Before we go to Brendan, we're going to go there quick. We forgot to mention Ocugen. They did have bad news there. There was a clinical hold on their Covaxin, or I forget what it's called. You know what it's called, drug there. And it cratered in the market, down 10% right now. But here's your 660 level in the pre-market. I wanted to play a fade off of that one. Obviously, you can see I did put some shares in here at 644. So stop at 660, probably 665, because I like rounding up a little bit. But that was one that was on the watch list. That's why it's a good idea to follow it. The free watch list, by the way. And it looks like it's going to give a bit of a pop that I can short. Brendo.
A huge reversal there, guys, for ISPC. Be very careful with these things. That has a very low float. The first vaccine name to pop up here on a volume scanner, guys. Maybe not the one you expected, but BNTX just breaking 350 straight higher for BioNTech.
That's not too crazy because it's the vaccine name that when you think about it, like that'll move a little bit more than Pfizer. I thought Pfizer because it had the bad Merck news, but we'll power up because Longeveron, it breaks. I was able to get back in. I didn't catch this on the way up. I had to catch it on the way back. On the way down. I caught it on the way back up there, 32.70. I just took some out in front of 31. If this breaches this 30 level, a couple of big ones to think about here. This previous halt price is 28.40, and then from there you're thinking like $26. So short Longeveron already starting to work out there. OCGN starting to work. And Zoom, this is what'll kill me because I get stopped out of the long on CCL, and it looks like the play was to short instead of buy the dip on the travel names, short the pop on the stay at home, which you think both would work. Obviously, that's not going to be the case here. Zoom all the way down to pre-market lows are 222. I mean, at some point, it's just going to be a risk to reward trade here off of this bottom. If we retake 225, I think I'm going to try and catch this bid here and see if I can't just give it $3 and then see if it gets back to the 30 to 32 level.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I'm looking at 220 actually on Zoom. And I like these. I like these absolute reversals because you are going to find some support here around 222 going on down to 220. If we get through, I think I'm going to be working some shorts there. But that's what you're seeing, and it's the complete reversal of all stocks that were up and down. Market was down, it's up relatively speaking since the open. So here we are moving in the opposite direction, which is a good thing. We need this. This helps the market, helps trades. If you're long already in some names that are going up, and you're positioned well, just hold on and see how far you can take it, right? If they're flipping around, then you just manage the risk. But for now, it does look like the way to go would have been to kind of go in the opposite direction. But you don't know how that's going to play out before the market opens, so we'll just wait it out. Again, Boeing and Zoom is what I've got my eye on. Let's see if I can actually get some trades. Brendan?
Oil extending, guys, to the downside. Here's XOM, the first one to pop up as well. Just broke through 60, trying to hold at day lows here for XOM.
Ooh, I just saw that actually.
Yeah, and as I said that on Zoom, it gets right to that 225 level. Looks like it could break here. I'm just adjusting my order because I want to maybe cross a few shekels deeper if it were to break this pure momentum style play here. Ocugen breaks the top, so that was sort of crazy. Like it immediately takes out that top. I did accidentally reverse into a long, didn't want it. So if I do that, I'm not holding on to it. And then, of course, if I do hold on to it, would have worked. But I'm going long 225 on Zoom if we get that break. I'm going to get a reload opportunity. Whoa, is Ocugen halting up? Ocugen trying to halt up? That's crazy. Okay, look, this is not a name that I was planning on long, but Ocugen is halting upside here. So I'm going to take that halt trade because this is a kind of day where I just want to have exposure to some of these low liquid names. And I think if something's going to halt upside, I just want that reopen style trade. I did get Zoom on that break of 225. So if it gets close to that 230, I'll start taking some shares off. But Ocugen on a volatility halt up on bad news, I guess it tells you all you need to know about a day like today.
Yeah, 12.5 million shares, and the opening price was as high as 740. Now it's kind of come back down to 715, 718 now. So it's moving around. The theoretical auction price, so based on the volume and what the order sizes look like, this is where the stock should open back up. but that's a moving number as more and more orders get put in, right? So just be aware that it's probably going to get more accurate the closer it gets to opening back up. Now it's at 712, 710, so it's moving around, volume is coming in, and what do we see? Boeing bounced right off that 76. Well, it got through there, but again, you're waiting to see how it trades below 196, bounces right back up to 198. Okay, so we're still waiting on Boeing. How's Zoom actually looks pretty decent, actually below 60, so I might actually step into Zoom. And we are looking at, not Zoom, Exxon, XOM, not ZM.
Okay.
Exxon looks a nice little trade below 60, and then Zoom, we're still waiting to see whether we can actually get through 220. Now, if it finds support here around 224/223, this might still be a long, regardless of what it did this morning. This might still be a long there to kind of just bounce along right off the support there. So we'll keep an eye on this. Futures got to 40, 42, and it's starting to hesitate. Again, we're still waiting for a little bit more information, but this is in the general area where I would like to start shorting.
Breno?
All right, guys, that APT back through that 650, trying to head back to the downside, so it heads up on APT. We're going to try and get Miss V more involved here and bring you some more ideas. She's actually right beside me going forward. Here is Valeria.
Hey guys, yeah, I'm super close to Brandon, can't even touch him. By the way, Arun and Neil, Microsoft is almost flat. Could you guys give us your opinion on Microsoft?
I think on a day like today, big tech is probably like your safe haven. That's what I would say about Microsoft. I mean, I don't know that you're going to see the crazy movement in it here. And I'll get to Longeveron in a quick second, because obviously you'll see that I am reversed to the long side. 135 broke, and then it actually halted up here. Now we're back to flat on it because you're getting a bit of a bounce in the market. I just think it's going to be flight to safety, and that's going to be the nature of the game. And Microsoft, will it break out of this 340 range? I really don't know if it's going to have enough juice to do that on the shortened day. All that being said, if you were picking up something in the long term, I think that's where you want to lean into. LGVN, like I just mentioned to you guys, it halted to the upside. So the short, thank goodness, why is it still on Microsoft? Thank goodness we did take some at 31. It then broke to 35. I'm in the halt to the long side because I got out and reversed to the long side. At 35 was the price that we liked. I actually want to hold this. The reason I kind of want to hold this through the reopen, it's indicating 36.25, which would be about $1, is you have this resistance at 37, and I kind of feel like I'll be able to make a judgment call in the reopen. If there's a volume to take this level out, I want to be exposed to that instead of just automatically getting out a little bit too shallow. Zoom, which is the long that we took off that 225 bounce, it keeps resisting 227, and I've been sitting on the north side of 227. So what I'm actually going to go ahead and do is just I'll get out in front of 227 because who cares about an extra 20 or 30 cents, ring the register on the dip buy, which then allows me to maybe come back in here and buy a little bit closer to that pre-market low with that tight stop at the bottom. So that's going to be the plan of action on Zoom. Obviously, we're waiting for both Ocugen and LGVN to reopen. Zoom ultimate target will be between 230 and 232. That's that target area from both the daily and then the pre-market range highs. AHPI, which I'm not ignoring, it's also moving, coming right back into that 850 level that I was shorting before. So you wait for the prices that you like, stay calm, keep calm, carry on, only take the prices and entries that I'm going to like. 855 has been my stop this entire time. I'm going to push that up to about 860 or so just because it happens to be VWAP. It's a small, subtle change, but one I'm going to make here.
Yeah, so I stepped into Exxon. Thank you, Brendan, for that. I didn't have that up. I actually had the crude futures, but even then, that was in the background. And I decided to put up Exxon. I'm like, oh, that looks good, below 60. Let's see how it trades. And it looked like it traded decent. Well, here I am on the short side of Exxon. It's sitting in a 13-cent winner at the moment, 14-cent winner. We're still waiting. This trade just got started, so there's no way I'm not ready to step out of this trade. It still has a chance to move down, so we're going to give it that chance and get working. Another trade I'm looking at while we go to Brendan is MasterCard, which I'll talk about when we come back.
Another vaccine-related name going back to the beginning of the pandemic once again, guys. Here's Inovio Pharmaceuticals, straight to the upside today, held 7 off the open there on a bit of a retracement, but big move for INO.
Yeah, INO is one. MasterCard. I'm looking at 320 on MasterCard. We snapped the low just off the open, and here we are bouncing. Now, if we can get back underneath and trade below, I think there could be a nice little trade there below 320 because we've been sitting on 320 for 2 days now. The 22nd late in the morning, and then pretty much overnight on the 23rd. So we definitely got to keep an eye on 320 and how it trades below, but there could be a short there. I'll mark it off. If we get back down there, that might be a trade to watch as well.
So I'll tell you right now, basically flat on the OCGN long, and then Longeveron opens back up here, and it immediately starts resisting that 37 level. So I'll see if I can't get, you know what, it is what it is. Like, I probably could have just taken it out like right away, and then gotten that open trend. Essentially the same thing as what I'm going to end up getting right here. 37 looks like a bit of a resistance at that point. I decided to get out when it checked up, and of course Longeveron's going to continue to go. So the reversal gives me about $1 worth of a win, and then it ends up being the wrong call. So it is what it is. If it halts up a second time, I don't want to chase this and take the halt trade too many times here, especially in front of the high of the day. So I'll probably sit it out if you're going to look at that halt style trade. And then Zoom, on the other hand, by the way, Zoom, we got that out. We got some out. We're looking to buy the dip again in front of that lower high, which is that higher low at 223 or so. Last time it was 225. I think this time I want something closer to that 223 range. That's still headed back to the downside. I reloaded AHPI, and another one which I know a lot of you guys are watching is that ISPC. That made a run through $20 a couple of times here and it has subsequently failed. Looking like it might try a bit of a head and shoulders action here. If it makes another push to the top, can't get through 20, this could really start to fade back in. Man, I should have held on to that Longeveron. Now at $38, that would have been huge.
Yeah, there's a lot of stocks moving around quite a bit here. Zoom still coming down through 223. There could be a trade there, like I mentioned. MasterCard was still somewhere close by. I don't have it up. And Exxon, okay, Exxon's a nice little 30-cent winner at the moment, falling off after taking out 60. Getting some sell-side volume coming in. Now it's gone. Airbnb is one I'm looking to fade, potentially, if we can actually get some movement here into this 174/175 area. Nice little resistance here going back through 2-3 days here. If we can get a nice little move off there and we get a chance to fade it, I'd like to do that. And another alert that just went off for me is Square. Let's see why. What did Square just do? Oh, it got below 210. Okay. I'm keeping an eye on Square. I'm going to give it a little bit more time to figure out how it wants to trade below 210. But if we can actually stay below 210, I think we can actually open up a nice little short here and see if we can get to 206, which seems to be the low support going back 2-3 days. So we'll keep an eye on Square for now. The alert did go off, but I'll just watch how it trades before I get involved. I do want to be kind of watching this a little bit more. And Zoom, as I talk, Zoom, here it is at 221 going towards 220. So maybe the long is not there anymore. We are looking for the short side on Zoom. Valeria?
Hey guys, on this negative day, Sava Sciences is ripping. Sava is up more than 4%. Do you guys see any opportunities in Sava today?
So Sava was a good one last week. I mean, I see you guys talking about that PTPI. We'll get to that in a quick second. Obviously there's a lot moving, and we can't necessarily cover everything at exactly the same time. Ooh, got to get some shares out of that. AHPI back at $8 again. Sava was a name that I was actually heavily trading off of this 58 level, just short trades off of 58 going into the afternoon. And once we violated and broke that, I think the only thing I would see is a pullback into that range gives you this 60, gives you that 58 for a dip buy. So I think that's what I would be looking for in Sava Sciences. I'm never chasing anything on that stock. If anything, I'm usually looking to fade off of levels. And I don't know that you're shorting it till it gets to the 200 period, which is a 63.5 or 65. So that's Sava Sciences. I said AHPI was on the move, and it absolutely is. And once again, it's, if it wants to even load here, gimme. Once again, it's basically the same price range that we're going to trade. It's shorting that 840 to 850 area. It's getting out in front of that 8, then 780. And hopefully this time, if it goes down to 750, I'll get the rest out. Brendo?
Headlines hurting cannabis stocks today as well. We had the whole group basically down 3 to 4% pre-market. The first one to pop up here back to the upside, guys, ACB, not the one I would have expected, but Aurora just popping up on volume there through pre-market highs.
So I said we'd come to it because everyone was asking about PTPI. It's already faded back in. And this is what's going to happen. On a day like today, you're going to watch every single one, not every single one, but you're going to watch a lot of these second, third day type of events. Like this has already done its gap and pull back. And they're going to retest and they're going to start to fade. And this is exactly what you look at here. Afternoon action going right back into the beginning of the week here, like Tuesday, I suppose. And this 235 resistance in the afternoon is exactly what it goes to and exactly where it turns into. And that's what you want to pay attention to. Like in the case of Longeveron, it went to that 35 level. And once it broke that, the short was gone. And you had to start thinking about a long side of the trade. So that's the same thing with PTPI. I think it has a decent chance that if it retests that level, I mean, I would consider jumping into this to a short side trade if it retests that high. But if it breaks 235, you got to be thinking long on this stock. And until then, I'm not chasing it. And there, oh, give me a break, AHPI. So the third time is not a charm on AHPI. That's my 15-minute chart because look what happens. Third time, I make top wick. Don't get anything out in front of 8, which I should have, obviously. Make top wick, and then it comes right back down. So this looks like it's probably still a short, even though it just wicked me out. And oh, Rivian, you didn't actually. So Rivian breaks 106.75. Remember I was saying I needed to check to make sure we have shorts on Rivian? Yeah, I didn't actually check. And so clearly we have to pay for shorts on Rivian, and I didn't check.
Yeah, but like we mentioned, 106.75 was the level, but because you need to give it some flexibility, 106 even would have been the stop. The low is 106.12. So 106 even is still the stop. And that's a level that Rivian needs to break before we can actually get some selling to continue to the downside, because it is not. It's at 107.10 now, so it is backing off a little bit. There's going to be a lot of volume that flows through this area, so just be aware that if you are on the short side, you're running into some support. If you are on the long side, you have some support backing you, but doesn't mean that it's going to hold forever. At some point, it's got to go if it's going to get some volume. So just keep an eye on this all the way down to 106. You've got some support, but once that goes, there really isn't a whole lot stopping it from going right to 100. Brendan?
Another one of the stay-at-home names, TDOC, guys, just coming into significant levels here from the pre-market. This 110, 111, trying to hold right now. Volume coming back in for TDOC.
Yeah, Nick, I see you. NVAX, yeah, NVAX took off the top. I mean, it is what it is with the stock. The trade was there. Maybe it could have flushed down, maybe not. Now what do you do? The stop is still around that 208, 207. Can I step in at 218? I think that's a little high on the risk side. Maybe 215 could be an area to work with. It all depends on if we can actually find some momentum. Sometimes you get the setup, and if you don't, you get the stock, you get the level, and if you don't get the proper setup, then you kind of step away a little bit. And I think NVAX, that trade may have sailed. I see Moderna is still running. So Moderna is at like 330, so that's still going. There might be a trade on that. Futures, however, oh boy, futures. Right through that 40, remember, that's the area I wanted to start looking to short as long as we kind of worked a trade. Nope, we just went up there, snapped down, and here we are at 46.11. So 30 points right off that top, and now we're looking at 4,600 again. I mean, there's nothing I can do. There's no way I was going to fade this without seeing how much trading was left, at least until we got to 46.50. But this trade is gone as well. So some trades, you have the right reads, you just have to kind of step away, and you miss them. And it is part of trading, and you just got to deal with it. For now, I'll just manage my Exxon position and see if we can actually grab some more trades here, because I see that there's some setups here. What's up?
Moderna, oh my goodness, Moderna up at this like 340 range. So
What's that, 340?
342 actually.
Oh,
so you're looking at these tops here at 350. 350 is a monstrous level on Moderna. I got back in HPI. You're not going to wick me out of a trade that I like. And literally, as I say it, it's going parabolic. It's going to turn into a bit of a short. You already see a bit of a turnaround here on Moderna. That's way too much, too fast there for Moderna. I thought 350 be the level. Looks like it was 342. V?
Hey Neil, LGVN is holding to the downside. Could you guys take a look at LGVN for us?
LGVN. Someone said it's halting to the downside?
Yeah, I mean, this is the one that I got in and out of, like, for that dollar, like the halts. And obviously, if I had held it, maybe, I said I wanted to not take it out on that reopen trade. And I didn't make the reopen trade, which ended up being, I think, the right call. But then I did get out of it when it rejected that 37 the first time. It does give you the push right into the pre-market highs. Didn't want to chase it up there. I would sit out the halt down. What I would be looking at now, obviously I did sit out the halt down. What I'd be looking at is this simple reopen and then the retest of this 35er, because now you have this previous halt range at about 35.23 or so, and the current halt price. And if it tries to open, if it opens, let's say lower, it's indicating 36 higher. So we'll see if that comes back in. But if it opens in the lower end of the range, you look for that to be a resistance. If this actually halts down and opens up at 36, then I'm simply thinking 40 test and 40 test alone for a bit of a trade there. And someone was asking what I thought about CCL. Look, I took it ends up being a pretty tight stop there. We had that 14 long, it's 14, 15, doesn't really matter. And then it broke that low of the day. So risking about 30 cents, you've now put in a higher low. right? So CCL is down 11%. It's actually holding up here at that bottom. Now that it's calmed down, consolidated, put on a higher low, this is when I'd rather get back into it. Let it settle down a bit. It didn't actually break out from that 18-quarter resistance level, so that's still in play for sure. A breakout style trade there. And then we have this higher low to work off of as well. So a couple of ways you can play the long. It's got a 1773 bottom, so you give that to you can give that to the actual 70 level, or if you're frisky, to 1750, and it still has an 1825 breakout, which is in play. So now that it's settled down, I prefer to get back into it here. And then Longevron, I'll wait till it opens back up. I did ring the register on AHPI at $8 this time. I'll reload in front of 850s. I will continue to scalp it to that $8 range. It's been pretty good so far.
Yeah, I was looking at the chat. Someone's like, you nailed it on the square. That waiting for 210 to get some confirmation. Okay, that sets up one. That helps us avoid going short. Great. Now let's set up the next trade, which is going to be that 217 top. If we can get above there, so we got some buying down there. Okay, if we can get through 217, that activates a nice little long. That kind of opens up this whole level here for potential support on a long off of 217 or above 217. So let's work this right now. 214 is where it's trading. 213.90. Is where it's trading. If we get above 217, there could be a nice little long there. Keep an eye on. NVAX is just above 220. Airbnb kind of fading a little bit, but not as high as I would like it. I would like it at 175 before I go for the short. I may have to step down a little bit. Let me keep an eye on this while we go to Brendan.
Some of the other payment, you just mentioned Square there. Some of the other payment names under big time pressure as well. AXP, guys, wow. 8% for American Express, just broke 158 there, volume coming in again. But big levels back here on the daily chart for AXP.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
A lot of names, a lot of financial names. AXP is one. I was looking at MasterCard. I was talking about MasterCard, but now I'm also looking at Visa. And MasterCard and Visa have completely the opposite chart here. Visa actually looks like somewhat of a long. Not yet, but I'm keeping an eye on it. But I'm just like, they got through this low. This is not Visa. Let me get Visa here. Visa, they got through this little low here around 194 half-ish. We'll probably call it 194. They set some traps. And some stops went off all the way down below 193, and here we are trading back 195. I would argue this is a long, but then I compared this chart with MasterCard because I would think, given the movement, I think 195 could be a nice long with the low being the stop. But then I look at MasterCard, which I was also looking on the short side, below 320, and it's kind of doing the same thing, but it's not as strong. This is acting a little bit weird for a stock that somewhat set a trap, right? So I'm going to keep an eye on both of these just in case they kind of get back in line and decide to go with American Express. So we'll keep an eye on this because futures are coming down. They don't want to back down after the nice little bounce off the open. Here we are back towards that 4,600 because that's going to be a critical level to work with. Let's mark some levels out that we may find for trades. If 4,600 goes and stops and trades well below there, I think your stop could be somewhere around 4,620-ish. It all depends on when we go and how we go. But for now, I'm going to keep an eye on the futures. I'm going to keep an eye on MasterCard, Visa, and American Express just to see if they all get in line. If they do, pick your shot, take your shot, whether it's MasterCard or Visa. The levels are there. 320 on MasterCard. Visa has its level as well. I believe 193 is the low. And then American Express is just doing its own little thing to the downside. So keep an eye on those names. If they get in line, there might be a trade there.
And speaking of trades, LGVN does pop back up. I like 40 for, I'm not going to short it in front of a halt level. So when it went to a halt at 39, I'm not going to take that trade. But it goes right back into that 40. That's the new test for sure. I did get back into both AHPI. So scalp some for the win, then get right back in front of 850 break. So we're back out of that one. And again, keeping some tight stops around those levels. CCL, I am back into the long side, but LGVN, this is the one that looks like it's going to be the absolute halt fest. That could be worth it because it's got almost a $10 range for now, and it has yet to violate the high of the current high of the day. I'll go to the 15 minute to quickly show you guys. I've only got the two trades, the short and then the reversal to the long, but this is a lower high on the pre-market level. This is your 45 going back into Wednesday, of course. So there was no trade yesterday. So back into Wednesday, this 45 level stands above this pre-market high, and if it gets through that, watch out. This could go absolutely crazy. It's currently indicating a flat open. It halted at 39.20. It's indicating a 39.21 open, which is not very interesting at all, but I do expect it's going to be a big mover off of that pre-market high. I got back into CCL, like I mentioned. I like the fact that it put in that higher low, and I wanted this thing to settle down before we dug back into another long trade. So it's right at VWAP at that $18 range. So very, very similar to what I was doing before, except this has now resisted that bottom. Ms. V?
Hey Neil, AMD just turned positive on the session. Do you guys have any opinions on AMD?
AMD, were we looking at this earlier? Oh yeah, I do. I actually have this on my alert here. AMD is a NASDAQ stock, right. Let's get this chart loaded because I'm going to give you guys the stop, or not the stop, but the trigger that I've got. 158 is a trigger I've got. We're sitting at 157.80. I want to see how this trades above 158 before I get involved. That would clear this. Remember, we were talking about this zone here all the way out through. If we were to fall out, this would be the area we would fall out. It looks like they want to get through it. So if they can get through it and stay above, hey, I'm all for that. I'll go for the long. I wasn't going to play inside the range, but I'll play outside the range. And 158 kind of opens the door a little bit. I do have to respect this trading around 159, call it 160, going back to the 18th or so. Respect that area, but if we can get above 158 and stay above, I'll get involved on AMD. I'm also looking at UAL, actually. UAL is a nice little move here off the open. It bounced and then trapped right through 42.50. Now it's working 42 evens on the downside. So one of the travel names that's on the watch list, guys, the free watch list, by the way, is actually now somewhat set up for a short around that 42.50. You can probably risk maybe 50 cents or so in risk and see if we can actually get a move to the downside. Now, I also looked at the stock that I was looking at in the travel name, NCLH, hasn't really done a whole lot. I'm looking at 20, hasn't done anything. 21 or 20, whether we go to the long on 21 or we go to the short on 20, it's kind of gone quiet a little bit, but it does look like UAL is opening the door for some potential shorts based on the way it's trading. As I talked, though, Exxon bouncing back to my entry price. But again, the setup is fine. The way it's been moving is fine. I'll hold on to this trade. The risk on this is $1 and change, just over 61. So we'll let it be and let it trade itself out. See how this turns out.
Yeah, and speaking of a couple of names we'll get back to now getting off VWAP as CCL starting to break back up. So I don't know if that's going to drag NCLH. We'll see what happens. It needs to crack 1825. There was a question and someone asked me, how do I see the indicated open price? Yeah, you know what? We actually get it on our list there. And again, you sort of, I don't know if I even have it on my imbalance locator, but I'll see if I can pull it up here. And if I don't, I'll add it quickly. But one of the things you look at, we can have it on a level 2 where there's like a theoretical auction price, and mine says 39.88 on LGVN. Yeah, there you go. You have an indicated open, which is like auction price. Of course, like as I'm trying to pull it up, it opens. But we have a column. It comes in the SIP, so it is with your data feed for the market. And as I was just trying to point it out to you guys there on the imbalance locator, you can see that final column. That's the indicated auction price. It opened back up on me, so I couldn't show it to you on LGVN in real time. It does test that pre-market high, and well, okay, so I was a little bit distracted there, but it does test that pre-market high for the fade. I'm not chasing a short on the stock, $3 away from the top. Now $4 away. Give me a break. Yeah, now, yeah, probably going to halt down here, but and again, it tested the high. I would have wanted that short. Maybe I don't even get it at $40, but like you've seen crazy action. If you don't see that with your broker, you can always ask. It is in most data feeds, like the imbalances for the open and close, are the same feed that you would get for the halt, right? It's the same mechanism that you would see. So if you don't have it with your broker, clearly we do at Day Trade the World, then always ask them because it is in the market data feed. It's just a matter of getting that entitlement. We talked about that level on Rivian there, Arun. It's back up to 110. It had a 111 high at the open, now back up to 110, resisting that. Don't break anything, Rob. Hopefully you're okay there. But on the 15-minute chart, if it breaks this 111 area, there is some room to rally to this 114 to 115 before you run into resistance. So Rivian catching a bit of a bid. As I say that, TCL, like the only position I'm sticking with. It's like all these small caps, I said I'll have really tight stops, try to be in and out. Man, I miss that LGVN.
Talk about missing something.
Anyways, but until it gets to 1825, it's not too much to see here. If anything, it could be a breakout at 1825. So I want to hang on to this trade. I might take a small amount out in front of 25 so I can rinse and repeat in case it doesn't go. But it's almost an ad on an 1825 breakout.
Yeah, I was saying, talk about missing something. Moderna absolutely going nuts. At 340, got as low as 330 on the last little move down. Now we're stuck in a 10-point indecision range. What do we do? Do we go up? Do we go down? This stock is still deciding. Let me just put things in perspective, though. This is what the level 2 looks like. The spread is at times $1. On average, it's about 60 cents. So do I want to get involved on a stock that's doing this after having run pretty much 20, 30 bucks? Probably not. I think I'm going to wait a little bit. I'd rather not get involved and get run over and lose money unnecessarily on something like this. I think the window for this trade was around that 300. You get in, you manage it properly, and then at some point you get out. But stepping in now kind of just opens the door for a kind of, I want to say, not gambling, but it does seem like unnecessary risk given the way it's trading. At some point there will be a trade, and that'll be a much better setup. We'll wait for that when that happens. But for now, I'm going to stay away from Moderna. Boeing, though, I do want to get involved on Boeing. Remember, we were looking at 196 on Boeing originally. Then it kind of bounced right off that 196 to 198, and now it's working its way down through, and it's actually getting underneath 195, which is a good thing. So we're clearing 195. If we can stay down here, I think I'll get involved on Boeing on the short side and see where I can put a stop. Brendan is actually at the big screen.
Hey guys, yeah, quick update as to how things are going. Yeah, still really red. Right across the entire board here, the S&P 1.8%. You can see the Dow 2.5% to the downside. It's the Russell, though, the worst off right now. Some of the small caps really getting hit. There's 3 on here. So this is the 1,000, the 2,000, and that just zoomed out. There you go, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. So 3% right now for the Russell 2000. The NASDAQ Composite 100 trying to find a bit of a bottom, but failing, unfortunately, at this point. Here in Toronto, the TSX about 1.75. That's probably far too small for you to be able to see, guys. So we'll throw it back to you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And now I can show it to you guys. So BFRI just halted to the upside, so I can show you this is the sort of theoretical auction price there. It's indicating a 782 open. This will obviously change in the 5 minutes leading up to, I'm assuming 5 minutes because it's a volatility halt. In that 5 minutes, we'll see what happens there. I mean, Zoom, of course, it shook me out. So again, it's one of those like Zoom, like I scalp out the win and then the second half you take the hit and gonna have that tight stop and it's gonna be the wrong call. BFRI, which I traded pre-market one time, was like, this is crazy, gonna get away from it. Now I'm looking at 8. I wouldn't have taken this break, but I mean, congratulations if you did, because I'm staring the face of this $8 range. And I think if it reopens and takes out 8, this is what the chart looks like. So this is why I like that short in the pre-market. It just gave you such a great risk to reward. But if this takes out 8, it could be absolutely running. I did ring the Reggie on CCL in front of 1825 because I've decided I am adding on an 1825 break and I'm adding on the dip. So 24 million in volume. I want to take advantage of CCL inside of the range, get dip buys, and then start covering in front of that quarter, and then just take the breakout as well as hold on to the overall long. So $8 is a key price. If BFRI wants to open up here, now it says $7.99, right in front of that $8 range, it could set up for an $8 break, right? Which is kind of, it's a tight trade to have in. So it's one of those situations where as long as it's indicating below, you know, one of the things I'll try to do is see if I can't put not necessarily a stop order, but get a limit order ready, that if it breaks above that price and looks like it's going to hold a bid, I want to just jump into it. I think in that particular case, you're giving it right around to that. It's either the halt price at 82, which I think is too tight, or back down to this 740 to 750 range. As I say this, CCL just broke the top, so I had already scalped some shares out. It's going to look odd on a 15-minute. I scalped some shares out on the odd chance that it would pop down back into VWAP. Instead, it does the break. So now you see my price is 17. I'll still buy in front of VWAP if it gets down there. From quarters to 50s to 75s. That'll be the name of the game here for me in CCL Carnival on the move. We'll open back up in about 2 minutes on BFRI. And speaking of halt fests, that LGVN still has not broken that. I mean, it barely broke that high of the day. Got about 20 cents and rejected that 41. So you're still looking at 41 for LGVN as it's holding near its highs as well. That could still break out. Remember, 45 was the top on the week.
Nick, I see your super chat. We'll do it after we come back from Valeria.
Harun, BFRI is halted, guys. Could you take a look at BFRI? And maybe what are your thoughts how you would trade it out of a halt?
I think Neil just talked about BFRI, so just in time. The super chat, Nick, wondering why I wouldn't look for the long on NVAX or BNTX, even though Moderna is running. I personally, and this is the way I trade, I like to trade them individually. Even though they're part of the same group, sometimes you get sympathy moves, and usually what tends to happen is you fade sympathy moves, but in this case, the entire sector has good news. So you're going to have individual stocks that run differently. Pfizer, Moderna, Merck, Neil was talking about in the pre-market, and you have NVAX as well. They all have their own little market dynamics and how they trade in volume. And when I look at trades and I'm looking at one stock, I want to know how that stock is trading. So I'm looking at NVAX's chart. NVAX, the chart looks decent around 210. So the trade was, and for me especially, the way I trade is there's a window for a trade. Once you get past that window, the window's closed. So for me, the trade had to be around that 212 area. So if you go to 220, there's no trade for me there. But if you come back into that window where I'm looking, I want to work with volume. I know volume's sitting around 210. So I'm looking at BNTX around 210, 212. That opens the window back up. Maybe there's a trade there, but I'm not going to chase this. Same thing happened with Moderna. The difference is Moderna ran hard. So the window there was 300. Once the window is closed, it's going to be, the risk is going to be too high. The way it moves is going to be difficult to read. You don't know where your stops are going to be. There's a lot of factors that come into play. So I like to, even though the entire sector may have news that can help it, I like to individually trade the names because I know where the risk should be on a stock and what the stop should be. So I like to individually place orders. And Moderna, if you want to trade all of them, great. If you want to trade one, you may end up missing the one that actually goes. In this case, out of the group, which one ran? Moderna. BNTX is up quite a bit as well, but Moderna looks like the big volatile mover. Moderna is the big name that everyone likes to play. It's got more flow to it, right? Pfizer's the old name, but Pfizer moves as well. So there's names to be played here, and you just got to choose which one and pick one. And like I said, with the travel names, I chose NCLH. Didn't do a whole lot, but then you have UAL, AL, Boeing actually is moving around as well. I might actually be getting into Boeing soon. But so you do have to pick at some point. You can't trade them all, so just pick what you can based on what you see. And if it gets out of that window for a trade, then you got to let it go. Find something else. And if it comes back in, put an alert system out. If it comes back in, there might be a trade there as well. As I talk about this, though, Zoom actually, I was actually mentioning Zoom around that 220 area. As long as 220 holds, there's going to be a potential long here. Well, it looks like they're going to flirt around with it. If we get above 228, I think that kind of confirms the long, and we'll just go for the long north of 228. So that's the trade I've got on Zoom. We're inside that window. I'm just waiting for the setup, pretty much.
Yeah, we're going to try to ring the register on that. And it was a good look. You guys were asking about BFRI same time that it halted when we were going over it. But it does give you that idea of, give you that look of breaking that 8 even right on the reopen. So if you had the halt trade, fantastic. If you didn't, you look for that 8 even break. It can't get past the quarters because I think everyone looked at the same trade. Take some shares out in front of the quarter. At this point, I'm looking stop below. That 782 is a halt price. I mean, I like to give it a few shekels there now that I've gotten most of it out, so it's a smaller position. So I'll actually let the rest ride to like 75 or so, whereas normally I'd have a strict 782 stop, but because I've already taken 2/3 of the position out, I just adjusted it very quickly there. And if it breaks this, I'm out. It's a quick in and out trade. If I had the halt price, I would have done the exact same thing, right? It's looked to get out on the north side of 8 even. Once it rejected this 825, what you want to see here is does it hold the halt price? Can it consolidate down there? If it does, you have a re-entry point, then a potential breakout at 825, and you're looking for further halts. For now, it is testing and retesting over and over again now. I mean, this is a 1-minute chart, so you're not going to necessarily see that it's testing, but trust me when I tell you, like, it's been testing this 780 over and over again. They're dumping into it. You're seeing the bid hold up. You're seeing people jump in. This is there, like 10,000 shares, jumps in on the bid. That's happened a couple of times. So it probably has to settle itself down a bit. If it can hold this range, it can go. If it can't, like I just said, I had my stop. My hands were off the keys there. I let it break that 780. I had already taken 2/3 of it out for the winner. If it does hold lower, you're looking right back into VWAP, $7, $7.20 for a potential dip buy there. Otherwise, I'll just sit it out till it retests 825. The other halt fest name is that LGVM, which I just quickly checked. Yep, so it's actually continuing to fade just a little bit as well. It gave you the one shot. I was a bit distracted and did not catch that one off the high of the day fade. That was probably the only trade to be had there. It is what it is. I should have had that trade. I should have had that trade. Rivian is the other name that we're watching. So I actually thought it was on its way to testing this on 111 top. So it's actually faded back in as well. As I look, the ES is breaking down towards that 4,600 level. So it's not necessarily what we want to see happen. CCL, I did get back into it, so that's one thing I have to consider here is you do have the ES starting to break back in. CCL added to my position when it broke that 25, so my average price is now in the teens. I would load in front of VWAP in the higher low. My stop is at that low of the day on CCL, Brendo.
Another little one that's a little bit thinly traded, but worth mentioning here, guys. Dare Biosciences, another one that popped up way back when during the pandemic, was just going to check real quick. Yeah, it does have a bit of a float, 73 million shares, which nowadays is actually huge. 3.6% here for Dare, just taking out day highs.
All right, Nick, we're going to do your super chat right after I talk about Boeing, my position that I just got into. I got into Boeing just underneath 195.50. This is in the area there where I want to look for a short, and I was starting to see some volume come in. As we were moving up towards 195.50, as we were trading through there, I noticed some volume come in, so I decided to get in on the short side. It's up 43 cents at the moment, but again, we got to get through 195 even to kind of open up things to the downside, but does look like Boeing is going to be a nice little trade there. The risk on this isn't high. It's going to be about $1. I'm not putting too much risk on this trade just because of how it's been trading. It's one of those reads where I think it's going to go, but I'm not sure. So I'm taking a shot there and see if I can actually get that move. We've got that Exxon position on the short side. We've got Boeing on the short side as well. Neil, do you want to talk about ADGI? It's one of those stocks that's absolutely going nuts to the upside from 21 to 26.
Yeah, I mean, Dominic, we'll get to that super chat. Thank you, as always, Dominic, there. And I mean, it already halted once and then made a fresh high at 28. So when you do this, you halt up and then you find a bit of a top and a consolidation. I usually expected it would put in a lower high. I was just also looking at that NRXP, which is another volatility halt. Noticing a bit of a theme here that you're getting more volatility halts when you have a half day, when you have lower liquidity. So that's to be expected. And again, that's why I've been sort of sitting with tighter stops as opposed to just getting in and then holding on to some of these crazy movers, which I think can be a bit suicidal. Now, ADGI, if you look at where it stalled at 28 level, sometimes on days like the lower the level of liquidity, then a lot of times, and then I guess fewer big traders, I guess, looking at it, like Rune said, some of the I guess backups or the junior trade desk guys are on today. You start to reverse at levels which can be a little bit more obvious. So in this particular case, it does breach this previous 27.50 support, goes about 20 or 30 cents or so, and then makes its hard reversal. And that's what you're dealing with that lower high. Now, both these things work. It goes in both directions here. If we reclaim this without breaking the support at 24, as long as 24 doesn't break, I'm going to like this one. You're going to want like a 28 breakout style trade there. Scalping is the way I'm going with all of these, so I'm not going to change that. I'm always going to be taking some profit no matter what. And then that NRXP, we're jumping from symbol to symbol here. Normally I wouldn't jump as much, but like I said, I'm going in and out of the movers and then holding on to something like a CCL. I got shook on Zoom and I'm kind of not happy with myself because it was a chance to hold that dip buy, which I didn't do. Might have been the right call overall, but it is what it is. This NRXP is even more dangerous. It has not even done 1 million shares. There is no liquidity. It is indicating an open of $6, which makes sense given the fact that there's just zero liquidity on this thing. So it's $4.90 halt price, indicating a $6 open, which is completely insane. But keep in mind the stock is a bit of a mover. So if it does actually open up at that $6, you're essentially clearing out a wide amount of this range here. And then on 15-minute, there we go, finally loading up. You're getting right into, this is $6 right here. You're getting right into these levels, which I think is where you might actually start to see some selling, which would be like 730 to 750. You might see some profit taking in that range. That would make sense to me at least. Should be opened up in, it looks like it's a 10-minute halt, so it'll be open in about a minute, still showing 631. So it's going to open up a 25%, my math right there, not even more than that, about a 30% winner on NRXP. That is monstrous, but this is, I don't even know what the float is on this. I'm going to assume it's absolutely tiny. But this is going to be a wild one. I expect it's probably going to halt a few times. V?
Hey guys, I would love to ask you to smash the like button. We have 5,000 viewers, actually more than 5,000, and not even 1,000 likes. We deserve much more likes. So guys, please support the team and the community. This is the holiday season, and make sure you like this video. It would be so great if we would be able to push it to 1.5 thousand likes. Back to you guys.
Well, talking about
Debo!
likes.
Sorry.
Oh. Yeah, go ahead.
No, man. Tell me that's Debo, Sean DeBot. So, if you guys don't know, like when I was my first trade group hired in of trainees back in like 2003, there was a group of us that are still in the industry. It's like 20 guys, and like 5 people graduated, and 3 of us are still in the game. And Debo, if that's you on the chat there, shout out. He's joking around saying the junior guys are on the desk because Sean's off. That's a Debo thing that you would say. We got to play poker one time, guys. I think we're playing on the 10th. Come by the office, Sean. I just wanted to. It's a blast from the past, man. I guess that kind of happens on a holiday.
Well, I was just going to say that we were talking about what's called it's Black Friday, so I've got a deal for you guys. likes are free. Go ahead and buy some likes by pressing that button.
I like it.
There you go. So since it's Black Friday, everybody wants to do some shopping. Why not buy some likes for free on this channel here? Positions, Boeing, okay, that's starting to go now. That's 75 cents of the money. That's starting to get through that 195. It's at 194.62. Why can't I adjust this chart in such a way where, sorry guys, normally I don't use these charts, but we have to use these ones so we can actually show you our trades. I tend to use the e-signal ones a little bit more. But these ones show us the actual trades versus the e-signal ones don't. So that's one. Boeing is 80 cents in the money. Great. Exxon working the bottom here. Can we stay and get through that 59.50? That's one trade to get through. Futures just cracked 4,600. Okay. I got to zoom in because this is not looking too good. Okay. 4,600 gone now. Can we get some volume to stay down here? If that is the case, I got to start looking for some levels to short with. I'm starting to think that maybe 46.30 could be an area. I don't know. I got to figure out what the level is going to be. But there could be a short here as long as we can stay here. What I want to see, though, is this market actually come back up through 4,600 and resist the ability to stay. So move back up, get smacked back down. At that point, I know volume to the buy side can't handle the amount of selling that's coming in, at which point I will go on the short side. But for now, though, it does look like it wants to come back up. So we're just waiting on this futures to figure out what it wants to do.
Yeah, and speaking of things figuring out what they want to do, it is Mr. DeBot. And if someone's asking where are my shorts, it's like I'm picking my spots, man. I'm almost liking Rivian here in front of 111, but Teladoc, this is 111 on the 15-minute chart. You have this nice consolidation, huge breakout to 120. You're right back at the low here at that 111. And it just, I mean, this is going to set up almost gorgeously here because you have room to like 109, and that's that previous support here. So if you can hold this bottom, kind of like it's shaking you, it shook you out if it broke 110 here, but you have this 109 level as well to that downside. I think that's going to be the key. It gets through this and gets through 109, and we could be just absolutely reversing everything on that particular name. But it was Rivian that kind of caught my attention earlier. Course. I always type New York like first time through, and then I'm doing this. It was Rivian that caught my attention the first time through, and it's retesting this 111 area here to the top side. I still think it could break, but with the market starting to come back into the downside, this is one name that usually has been a fantastic short, and I'm going to fade it. I still think 111 could be a breakout, but if it's going to be in front of it, I want to catch a short on Rivian. So I'll start it if I can as here we go, try to get some shares southbound of 109.50. I'd add around 110 to 110.50 as well. 111 would be the hard stop. Of course, this is coming back in. Then we're going to give up some of these gains on CCL. I'm not going to buy the dip on CCL unless it's low of the day, and I don't want to do it if we're cracking that 46 and the Nasdaq can't hold that 16.1. We're already at 10.20. This half day is moving fast. Let's go to Brendan for small cap recap.
Hey guys, busy morning. Let's jump into a few small caps that were moving around in the pre-market that we talked about. AHPI, Neil was all over this as well. I'll give you my take on it. If you go back on the daily chart, there's a really tight consolidation between 9 and 10. So I just marked that off on a daily time frame. Ends up being basically the top end of the range this morning. 9 and 10 is that channel right there. Took the break to the downside. Nice flush all the way down to 7.5. It ends up getting to about 7 before bouncing. Tried that again quickly at 8. That would kind of corresponded with where VWAP was at the time. That ends up being a decent long back above 9. So we're trying to hold 9 right now. Key level for AHPI. Still all kinds of volume. ISPC. I did not even pay for shorts because I will not short a stock with a 3 million share float. Long attempt in the pre-market. I quickly realized there was zero liquidity, so immediately got out of that trade. Tried it again at the open. That works twice, all the way up to 20. Great opportunity on ISPC. And then this APT we talked about just before the open. 650 I mentioned, then 680 was kind of this area from the pre-market. I mean, it doesn't even come into play. Gives you a nice flush rejection of 675 there through 650. A couple of shorts to the downside, guys, for APT as well. Back over to you.
Oh my goodness! And of course, I think it was Vivek asking in the chat. He's like, Neil, why weren't you reverse short into BFRI? It was battling at that 780, so it was enough for me to get out of the long. It just wasn't enough for me to get into that short. And then the consolidation lower probably would have been an opportunity at that 760, but I was looking at something else at the time, so it is what it is. It actually crashed through that 7 even, so this is actually feeling like a bit of a retracement. I have not added to the Rivian just yet, but it's getting pretty close to that 111 where I would do so. I'm looking at NRXP here, and you guys are absolutely right. It's now 15 minutes. So a lot of times I'll make the assumption, and you should always check the halt page just to see. It is, like, it's a volatility halt. And look, we saw this happen with, I think it was PHUN way back, where they had a volatility halt that lasted an hour. And, you know, I think it's a bit dirty. I think, you know, it's 5 minutes, it's 10 minutes, allow for that trade. And it's still indicating, I mean, it just keeps indicating higher and higher. I think they just can't pair this thing. And that's probably what's going on here, because I see a 750 and on NRXP, like, this is starting to get out of hand. I'm seeing 751 as the indicated price on NRXP now, but I have no idea when it's going to open. I wish I could tell you guys, but I'm just as clueless as you as to when they will open this back up. It has now been 16 minutes. It could be at any moment, but clearly the pair just keeps getting higher and higher on the price. So I have no idea when it's going to settle down. I'm assuming they're waiting for a more orderly open. Liquidity is super low on this one. I mean, super low. It hadn't even done 500,000 or just barely even 500,000 shares, guys. So just be careful trading this thing.
Yeah, be careful trading overall in general. Futures, okay. Sometimes these waiting for some volume to come in kind of helps avoid this mess. If you went short because you thought 4,600 was a good short, look at that snapback. 10 points, actually 15 points off the bottom there. 4,610 is now where we're trading at. So this market is aggressive, volatile. Talk about volatility. Boeing, which was 75 cents in the money, is now 75 cents out of the money because it spun right around off that 94.50 area, and now it's trading just above 96 and change. Again, the stop on this is north of 96.50. So we're going to leave that alone, wait to see how it trades. If it keeps going, then we got to get out of that one. I also stepped into a short just on Macy's as well. Short just underneath 30. Stop on this is going to be north of 31. So we'll see how that one works. We just got into that one. So we're waiting on that. And NCLH just kind of took out 20 or got to 20. I'm waiting to see how it trades below 20 before I get involved. But this is one of those trades we were looking at all morning because remember, this was the travel name I chose. And if it got through 20 and stayed below 20 and traded well, then I'd like to be on the short side of that. But it doesn't look like it wants to go there right away because the low exactly is 20 even. So there's a lot of volume. The bids are somewhat thick. So we're going to wait to see on how this trades. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at a bunch of other stuff here. We're waiting on NCLH, and we've got Macy's, we've got Exxon, and we've got Boeing all to the short side. We're waiting on futures maybe to get back below 4,600. That might open up a short as well. I'm just looking at my screen. I'm like, man, I've got a lot of shorts on. Futures, yeah, it is flirting with the downside, but not confident enough to be like, yeah, you know what, my shorts are in great shape here. So apart from Exxon, it does look like some of these other names are going to be bouncing a little bit more than I would have liked for these shorts to come back up.
Yeah, and someone was saying, I'm looking at obviously I'm going to be looking at that BRFI next, right? Like we did miss out on the short at the top there. Obviously it was a reversal from that long, which a lot of times it's easier to see that, the reversal if you're in that long trade, like the failed breakout. If you're in the failed break, why is this not loading up for me? This is one now it's really starting to bug me. We'll do it this way. Click on it. There we go. And yeah, it's probably, there we go. But now it's starting to consolidate in front of that 7 even, which we thought was a bit of a key price. Here's the issue, like it's running stops like crazy. So if you shorted here, you can't, it's just not gonna work with a $7 stop. Like you almost have to be giving it to 7.20, 7.25. So as long as that's gonna work for you, which for me it's okay, especially if it wants to, hold here a little bit longer, the volume continues to die down, could be worth a look. I'm still staring, it's now almost 20 minutes on NRXP, and it's still indicating $7.51, which, like, it's a 50% move to the upside on NRXP. So that's jumping to the top of the list. I mean, I got to double check. I don't know, Brendan, if you know what the float is on the NRXP, we can quickly check that one, because this is getting insane as to how high it's tapping up here, Brendo.
I will do that in real time. Give me 2 seconds here. Free float it's actually not bad, 23.8 on that, so 23.8. I wanted to mention Newegg as well. 15% here, guys, already. Just popped up from 18.5 to $22 for Newegg.
Is that Neg? Newegg. I've actually never bought anything off of Newegg. Interestingly enough, okay, I can work with that chart. It's the way it's trading. It's somewhat thin in terms of the setup, but it is there. Like you just really got to look for it here. Where is it? Come on, give me the multi-day move. Okay, here. The majority of the volume seems to be tied up around 18. Here it's trading at 21. The high previously, going back to the 17th, was around 2080. So you could say, oh, we're at new highs, but the volume is down here. So I would say you would have to wait for it to come down to at least 19 before stepping on the buy side and going for a long. And then also, and it also matters how it comes down, because if it comes straight back down, then it may just go through the bottom. So it does have to kind of creep its way back down for the long to still be valid, but just keep an eye on the volume where it is. Where is it? It's down here between 19 and it looks like 17 and change. So keep an eye on that. In terms of movement, I wouldn't do anything here. Yes, it's up 15%. Yes, it's above 20, but unless you're playing momentum, can you even play momentum on this? It's done 800,000 shares and we're over about an hour into the open. So volume's somewhat low. So if you're gonna get low spreads or high spreads, low volume, I'd be careful with this if you do decide to go on the long side on Newegg.
So just one quick thing. You guys are rightfully noting that the warrants don't halt, right? So they're going to continue to be trading on this NRXP. But if it's thin trading on the actual the equity side, then these warrants are even more thin. Like it's on 150,000 shares, which is absolutely nothing in terms of volume. Yeah, they're still sort of going to the upside here, but actually slowing down quite a bit. And it's like a 12, 13 cent spread at times. It's just, not a vehicle that I'd be that excited about trading in, so I'm kind of staying away from it here. A couple of people asked earlier about Gap. I was looking at Nordstrom's actually this morning because that's what we traded back on Wednesday. Today is just the chart. It's like even worse today. Anyways, Gap's got a bit of a double bottom, and no, things don't look good for Gap, and no, it's not the prettiest looking chart. It's just continuing to crater here. It's got a double bottom here just below that 17 mark. It's looking to retest 17 back into the upside, but the 15-minute is about as ugly as it looks like. And then the daily chart, oh goodness. You have to go all the way back. And the same thing with Nordstrom, by the way. You sort of pick your poison with these two. You have to go all the way back into September of last year to find your next level of support down at 1580 or so. So this is a big bottom at that 1689 this is trying to put in. That BFRI continues to consolidate, which does still set us up here, hopefully. There we go. BFRI. It's like this one never wants to load the first time through. But if you look at it, this consolidation, it's now starting to test above that 7 even. Like I said, you're not shorting this unless you're giving it to 7 quarters, 730. That's what I would like to do. So if it breaks higher, fails at VWAP, can come back into this range, then I like the short side of that trade. Now an $8 tap on NRXP. So clearly that one is going to be absolute nonsense when it opens back up. Brendan's got another for you.
A little one, THMO, which is thermogenesis, another one of those teeny tiny little floats going crazy. THMO up 26%, 9 million on this float, guys, but coming into big time levels here for THMO. You saw Miss V there. It's 10:30, which means there's it's fine. There's an hour left in the European session, Miss V. What's going on over there?
Hey, Brandon, European markets are negative and set for their worst trading session in more than a year due to new COVID-19 variant. Those news affected travel stocks a lot today, including IAG trading in London is down more than 14%. Back to you guys.
Yeah, you saw the S&P come off 4,600 there, a little bit better than maybe the last time. So still, 1.8%, but maybe a bottom, guys.
Yeah, I'm hoping it is, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, you only have an hour and a half to go. Keep that in mind, right? So you're halfway through you're not quite halfway through the session. You're close to halfway through the session, although volume-wise, you might be, because things really slow down. At least they tend to slow down in the afternoon on days like today. Just coming back to this AHPI, by the way, this is still holding above that short price that we like, that 865. It never tested the top, so there was no trade for me because it never got to $10. But it's basically been holding this 850 to 865 as support, just not going anywhere. And as long as it wants to do that, then I'm going to be looking to get back into the short side of this trade. It was a good one all morning long, with the exception of that last time through. So if it breaks 850, I'm back into the short on HPI. I did get into BFRI in that consolidation. So if I'm asking where the shorts are, yeah, they're starting to come in for me here, or at least starting to set back up for me. And I will not take my eyes off of NRXP. When it opens, I'm definitely wanting to trade that. Still looking at that low of the day on CCL. It's back at 1785, about 10 cents from that low of the day. So 850 break, which almost happened there in HPI. Short now BFRI at 699. When it retook 7 even, I got into the short. That was at 99s, as you can see. And that one we could be holding for the long haul.
Yeah, so we ended up getting out of our Boeing short just north of 196.50. Now it's coming back into 195 and change. Let me put it on this chart, actually. So here it's trading back pretty much at my entry price. I'm not too bothered by getting out, but I'm very curious to see whether we can actually get back to 196.50, because I think there's some volume flowing through here, through this 196/195, this range here. Now, originally I went short because I thought it was on the sell side. Now, that could have been just a fake move to the top there, but if that is legit, if there's enough buying to get us back up, it could be building a nice little base here. So keep an eye on this and how it trades back towards 196.50. Because there could be a long, because you could actually flip the trade from the short to a long if you get the volume to support the bid, because there's definitely some volume flowing through here. Another trade that I'm trying to get my hands on here, where is it? NCLH finally gets below 20 and now working 1992. So now it's trading well. This is one of those names we wanted to short, so I'm waiting closer to 20 here to see if I can grab a short on a move back up. So that's one trade we're waiting on. We've got our Macy's. Exxon is bouncing back as well, but Exxon is doing it so slowly, and I'm looking at the chart going, do I kind of manage this out in front of 59.50? I don't see a reason to. As Neil mentioned, apart from time being a factor, I think this trade is setting up. It could extend, but we're just going to leave it be. I don't want to touch this too early, so we're going to let this work. For now, it's a 7-cent winner. It was bigger, it was smaller, it went negative for a bit, so it's kind of figuring out what it wants to do. We'll leave it alone. So 3 trades there. We got that. NCLA, we want to get short. Exxon, we got to leave alone. Macy's, we're in the money, or not in the money. We're out of the money, but we're going to leave it alone because the trade is set up. And Boeing, we got to figure out what's going to happen around 196.50. Pretty much, if there's buying that brings it back up, there could be a trade there. So we're going to wait for that one as well. Apart from that, not a whole lot. I'm not that active today. Futures seem to be whipping around, getting a lot of people in and out. You see stops going off, whether it's to the upside through 46.40 or to the downside below the daily or the pre-market lows below 46.97 and change. Clearly, a lot of people getting whipped around, and that's kind of what you normally get when there's volatility and volume's not that high. But normally what you would expect, though, volatility is not high, volume's low as well. So that's the expectation. Obviously, a little bit different. So people getting stopped in and out on future stocks, everything, right? Let's just, I got nothing else.
I just wanted to get to actually answering Shoaib in the chat there, and if you're a doctor and you know COVID numbers, as far as I know, it's not insider trading, but I'm not going to pretend that I have expert knowledge in what you can and can't do as a physician with your investing. It doesn't make any sense to me that it would be. We got some more questions about, and this isn't unbelievable, about where I get that theoretical auction price. It's in our data feed at Day Trade the World. So the same way I can see, like, the indicated size, this is the imbalance of 2,000 shares. It's actually a sell imbalance now of a 1,600 shares. So it's oversubscribed. It's reopened to the south side. But the indicated open price is now $9.90. And I'll tell you this right now, I don't care to say it. But if this doesn't open back up, because if you got the long, like you're sitting on a double up if you got the long at the whole price.
Oh, wow. If
they don't open it, and then it's indicated of $10, they hold it, it doesn't open back up, and then the next thing you know, it's $9 indicated open, $8, and then it comes right back to $5, and then that's when it opens. That will be absolutely, utterly disgusting, and you have a right to be fumed if that's what happens here, because this is getting insane. They just open it up so people can realize these gains. At some point, it just gets out of hand, and allow it to open and allow there to be some price discovery, because clearly, this is kind of broken. It's now been, what is it even? I don't even, who cares? It's half an hour, whatever the heck it is. It's not 5 or 10 minutes like it's supposed to be.
Yeah, so to clarify, the data feed has this information. It's a matter of whether your broker has a way to display that information or not. Our software is custom built, right? So our software has it all built in. So we just got to click on the little icon here. Let me just pull up the icon. For anyone who does have or is using P-Pro 8 is at one of our other offices, Just click on the icon here. What do you call this? A scale. It's a scale. And you just opens up a window like this. I've modified it so in such a way where we can actually see it because, it's too small for you guys to see. And then you have different information. We right click and we can modify it such what information do we want to see. And what Neil's talking about here is what we call here the auction price. So that allows us to see what the auction price is going to be with its volume. And we have different indicators or different sections that we can use. So it's all part of the software. It's built into the software, and it's one of those things. And everyone has different software. Everyone's not using the same thing. It's just a matter of figuring out where it is on your software because each broker is different. Ours is, well, it's custom built, right? So it's built for us from the software side, from our software team. So here we are waiting. And we have a lot of tools too. So for anyone who's at Day Trader of the World, you guys know that we have a ton of tools that we can work with, and one of those tools is the imbalance locator.
So one's working. We'll do this one for BFRI, which again, like I said, the reasons why I didn't like the short didn't end up being right here on BFRI, but we got the $7 short when we retook it. Just took some out in front of 666 because whatever. And then I'm looking to see if it can retest this 635 bottom. The other side of this is that AHPI, which is right back to 49. So, I had a chance to take like a small win, like 10, 15 pennies on it. I was looking for more than that, obviously, so I didn't because I didn't take it out. Someone said in the chat, if you answered, I might have missed it, so answer it again. Like they said they can't cancel their order on NRXP. So I'm just kind of curious, like what type of order would you not be able to cancel in this current halt state? Because from my knowledge, you should be, if you have an open order, an open market on open order, you should usually be able to cancel that while it's in the halt state. Like nothing should be locked in and again, that's just to my knowledge. So I'm hoping that's not the case because to be stuck committed to a certain price or a market order on the reopen makes no sense to me. I'm now seeing 916, so it's actually come down the price on NRXP. When it opens up, we'll let you guys know and we'll get right over to it. But obviously at this point, I'm just as clueless as you guys, so we might as well move on from it. I thought DD was going to be a thing. DD is clearly not a thing. It's not even moving, so I'm not going to get into it. Occugen was a short to reversal accidental long that I scalped, and then a failed halt upside trade, right? So they're able to get like a small win on the reopen and then just take the hit on Occugen. It's now making a similar move to what I saw in BFRI, where makes that halt up, fails, and comes right back down. Now this is holding VWAP, but also a pretty key level around that 650, where that was the price we were looking to get the halt before. Keep in mind they did have. I'm going to consult the watch list to make sure I actually get it right. It's a clinical hold on that Covaxin new drug application. So it is not good news for them down that 8%, but this level is holding pretty nicely now. A bit of a triple bottom with one failed break at 650. If it flushes and goes through 640, I'd short that break the same way I took the HPI short break. And not really seeing much happen at CCL. Unless it breaks low of the day, I will be in that trade to the long side. Obviously, I only have till 1 o'clock for it to work out. You can't hang on to it all day. Volatility tends to wane in the last half of the market here by a lot. So if it hasn't moved by then, sometimes you got to consider working out of it too early. We are going to go to sector watch, and there is a little bit of blue. Green, but it is blue on that screen. Let's see it with Brendan.
Yeah, pretty red otherwise, glowing red, if you will, right across the board here. It's been a while since we've had 1.8% kind of day to the downside. It's the pharmaceutical names, as to be expected, and the healthcare equipment makers down here getting some love today. But Moderna, 21.5% for mRNA. Pfizer there, 6%. You can see BIO, DHR, WST. To name a few, DGX and LH faring the best in the healthcare equipment makers. Otherwise, not much to talk about on the upside. This is the energy group, so the entire thing under significant pressure here. You can see Apache, Oxy, Devon, MRO, and Fang all 10+% to the downside. VLO, then PSX and Halliburton there, all about 7 or 8% in negative territory. Industrials, this is the banking sector, and then consumer discretionary stocks all under significant sell pressure today. Tech stocks far corner over there. There is actually a little bit of buying coming in software names. So this group right here, there's Autodesk. Don't see what that one is, but there is some positivity in software specifically for the tech sector. Hardware equipment makers and the semiconductors, however, not so much. Very, very red for that entire group. As I mentioned, banking stocks and consumer discretionary stocks. These are all the cruise lines right here, 12+%. Some of the hotels and travel-related websites, as expected, under pressure as well. 1.8%, guys, for the S&P. Back to you.
Somebody was asking Zoom. Yes, Zoom is at where we were looking at 220 on Zoom. This is the area. If this is good, if we can get below and trade below, then the short could be in play on Zoom. That's what I was looking at. I was going to give it a chance, long as 228. If this 220 area held, it can still hold. It's there, but it can still hold and go to 228. At which point the long is still available. But if 220 goes, I think then you have to flip the read and go for the short. But it is flirting, it is backing away, it's trying its best not to go through 220. There's volume, there's a 24-cent spread at the moment. It's on 5 million shares, almost 6 million shares, 5.8 actually to be exact. And it's kind of working its way through. Let's keep an eye on it until 220 goes, or until 220 not just goes, it needs to trade below. And we've seen this quite a bit in the futures. We've seen it in other names as well, where it goes through these round numbers, takes out some stops, and then spins back around and takes off to the opposite direction. So be aware that that's something that's been happening. It's a tendency of this market today on all these names that have been moving around quite a bit. So just be aware of that. Keep an eye on that. And if we get that move below 220 and that stays below 220, then there could be a nice little trade there. How are other positions doing? We've got Exxon flat. We've got NCLH finally moving. Okay, we worked NCLH into the short side at 97, I believe. Yeah, and the NCLH. Remember, we were looking at 20 the entire time. Once it got below 20, stayed below 20, traded below 20, well below 20. We went for the short. And Macy's against us for the moment, but it is coming back a little bit now. I'm worried about Macy's just because we shouldn't be this far deep into 30. I think we should have gone maybe 30-20 or so. We shouldn't have gone as high as 30-40. I'll give it a chance, but I do have to keep an eye on Macy's because that may not work out. And damn it, Boeing. Boeing just, I think the stop on that was bad because it got me out at 196.50. Ignore the big candle there. That's just our charts picking up some random data there. 196.50 is where my stop was. I got out and then kind of went up and came right back down. So that would be a nice little 50-cent winner, which is not. But I was willing to spin this trade around to the buy side, but it doesn't look like that's ready. So I'm just going to remove Boeing from my watch list. We're going to move on from that and find something else to trade. We are getting into the final 2 hours, just over 2 hours into the day. We've got 45 minutes before Europe happens. And I do want to put this out there. Europe closes at 11:30 Eastern. Given the type of market you've gotten so far, you're going to get volatility. Guaranteed you're going to get volatility pretty much from 11:20 going into the final 10 minutes before they close. Yes, it's Europe, but at the same time, that affects futures here. That affects some stocks. Some stocks are dual traded or dual listed and traded here as well. So just be aware there's a lot happening around 11:30. Expect some volatility. I would be prepared for that if you aren't used to seeing something like that. It's probably going to be a little bit more obvious because on a day like today, where there tends to be less volume throughout the day anyways, today's an exception, there tends to be less volume, so when Europe closes, you really notice it. I would imagine it's going to be the same thing today, but with Europe having much more volume to do at their closes.
Yeah, 100%. And that's worth keeping in mind. I'm expecting to see some fireworks on Europe. Now, keep in mind, I know Brendan already mentioned it, so I'll double down. We have 15 minutes, and then we're going to pass you over to Trader Prad and Miss V, as always. But because of the holiday shortened, the half day, I should say, because of that half day, we will be back at 12 to 1. So we'll be doing the close show a little bit. I mean, it's the same sort of thing. It won't be 2 hours. It'll be 1 hour because of the condensed day. A couple of things here. Again, I'll keep updating you guys because I know people will keep asking me about it. So it's now a $9 tap, and I had no clue when we'll open back up. HPI tested VWAP, so I didn't take 10, 15 cents when it was there for me. I then reload in front of VWAP, and then it ends up stopping me out. So now the only short I'm in is the last of that BFRI. Someone asked me my stop was in CCL. It's still just below that low of the day. Give it a few pennies below that. That actually hasn't changed all morning long. And then one other name that we have not talked about, but kind of. I just glanced at it, and then, well, actually mostly because I saw Miss V. The low of the day on CCL, if you can't see, it's 1773. So you can probably figure it's 1770, right? Let's see next even dollar range below there. Someone asked about, well, no one asked about Tesla, but I saw Miss V was talking about Tesla, and it caught my interest. It's right at this 1100 and doing almost nothing. So it's kind of, it's down 1.5%. Ooh, that's, get rid of that. In, so you can see a little bit better on the daily chart. It's in the middle of this no man's land around this 1100 range. You can see on the daily chart. And the last time we traded here, of course, you can see these longs here off of that 1060 dip. I don't think we're necessarily seeing that kind of a dip buy opportunity, but just keeping in mind here what's this nice little cluster that Tesla is, and I don't know if it can break out of it, but if the market actually holds this bid and starts to get back to the upside, I mean, it's an interesting one through that top side break. If it can do it, because it's in a relatively tight range. It's a nice tight cluster there. Your problem with any kind of breakout, and why I would say or lean against doing it for most people, is with only an hour to go, or just over, just over under a couple hours to go here. You got to start thinking about the level of liquidity decreasing, and maybe most of the moves having already happened. So that's why I would lean into the stocks that are actually making moves. Like, you want this break to happen now or soon. Whereas I know AHPI is going to move. I know BFRI is on the move. I know if they ever open this NRXP, that'll be on the move. They're never opening it. It's ridiculous. And if they don't open it up, that's the most. I'm going to stop talking about it. But this BFRI, I know it's going to move. So it's going to give me these opportunities. We break back above VWAP, I'm out. If we resist VWAP, I can jump back in, start scalping 40 to 50 cent winners. So I'm going to stick to what is actually going around here. And the ISPC, that's on the move again. Thank you very much, Wasim. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's on the move. Just broke that high of the day on volume. Like, this is where you want to be. You want to make sure you're trying to trade the names that are going, that'll have volume into the close, and not the ones that are going to likely dry up. Because that last hour, I've seen days where it's like watching paint dry, and you don't want to be over trading. So, it's binary for me on CCL. I'm not re-entering that trade if it breaks low of the day. If anything, it's got to be a short. This ISPC, if you're watching it break out through these highs, you've got nothing but this level right here, 2160. I didn't think we'd get to see this. It looks like we're about to test that 2160 from Wednesday. That's Wednesday's high. Everyone's looking at the same thing here, 2160 top.
Yeah, talking about paint drying or watching paint dry, something that is not boring is what's on my screen here. Leon just mentioned, Arun, look at oil. I looked at oil. Wow. Okay. 74 even is where we were trading going into the open, not even into the open, into 9 o'clock. And then we just kind of fell off here at 9:30 when the stock market opened. It was at 73. Now it's trading at 70.20, almost about to take 70 even out. The oil's on quite the ride here. Started the day at 78, and now here we are almost at 70 even. So just keeping, yeah, it's an exciting thing to watch. Anybody who wants to trade the crude contract, not my cup of tea, but anybody who wants to trade it, remember, it's $10 a penny for every contract you take on the crude futures. Brendan?
Hey guys, yeah, quick check of a very red board when it comes to currencies in the crypto markets as well. Threw up Bitcoin over there because officially back in bear territory, bear market territory for cryptocurrencies, 69 and change at the top. We're all the way back to 53.5 this morning, a monster sell-off once again for Bitcoin, down 7.5 right now, back to 54,400. There you can see Ethereum did get below 4,000 briefly, but has since retaken it. Ripple down 10% today as well. Big moves here for the Turkish lira. We were talking about it back on Wednesday to the upside, another 4% today higher. You can see the US dollar overall lower on the session there, about 0.7%. The Canadian dollar down a full percent. Big moves, a lot of volatility coming back into the market in general. Japanese yen, Swiss franc, both down more than 1% together. But this one, pretty interesting, guys. Back to this level that was support on the way up. We broke it, held it for quite some time, 53,500 for Bitcoin. Back over to you.
Yeah, that's that big level. I like it. I mean, I bought some on the dip there. I was looking to do it, whether this had happened anyways, like today it happened, I was looking to buy at that price. It almost didn't matter. It just happened to be on a bigger flush than I anticipated. Quick break on that ISPC through that 2160. I did grab it and then immediately found resistance. Oh, sorry, it just broke out again. So just retook that high of the day and I'm back into it. I was just saying, like, it actually looked like it was about to go. This is my 15-minute chart, so you can see yesterday's action. It was Wednesday's action. So it was a quick break. It immediately resisted 22.25. It then broke 22.25 there, where I just reloaded into it. Quickly took it to the 50-cent scalp again. If it breaks the high at 23, I'm looking halt out or 25, and I keep putting my stop relatively tight on these because there's just no way I want to get caught in a retracement today. I've said many times here today that you're going to have less liquidity, so I'm going to bank profits a little bit faster on some of these crazy movers because that's the best name for them. 23 looking like resistance currently here. If it chews through that, Decent chance it could halt. 25 is a round number anyways, but you're going to see me with a 22 stop on this. Want to get in, want to get out like a bit of a bandit if I can. BFRI, which is on the move here, had the last of those shares, and then it spikes up to that 750 level. So you sit there, get distracted, and then I changed my stop because I wanted to adjust the amount of shares because I took profit and then didn't re-put it back in. So we end up missing out on this one when it broke that 720. Now, I'm not going to exacerbate it by averaging back into it. All you can do is adjust, and the only adjustment to make is go back to the next level up, which is 760, and then take the hit. We're now sitting, okay, we're about $1.30 in the money. We're getting to that 24 level on that ISPC. Like I said, I don't want to get trapped in this one. If it makes a hard reversal, I'm not trailing it per se, but I'm sort of keeping my eye on the price here as it rejects these even dollar levels to be able to manually get out of this one. Yeah, there we go.
All right.
That was me. I just got out. Like it snapped from 24 to 23.20. That was close enough, so I have gotten out of that trade. It's a successful breakout twice. Now here comes 25 even. I would look to short it one time off 25 if it has any signs of slowing up there.
All right. Neil's riding the wave on ISPC to the upside there. I do want to get back to the futures, though. I feel like some people just need. I want to put it out there because a lot of people are afraid of trading the futures because of leverage and whatnot. I do want to put it out there. If you want to learn, I'm on the CME Group website. I'm just going to put this out there for as information. If you want to learn, great. They have micro contracts because someone mentioned in the chat about how not everything is a $10 move on the crude futures, $10 a point or $10 a penny. It's not because then I remembered, yes, there's micro contracts. So anyone who wants to learn futures and not trading spies and just kind of wants to trade the actual futures themselves, you have access to the micro futures. You have, I think they have the micro Dow, they have the micro E-mini, they have the micro NASDAQ, and they also have the micro crude futures as well. It's a tenth of the value. In this case, the S&P is $5, and the crude is $1 per point, right? So just be aware that there are tools out there geared specifically towards traders that are just starting out, learning whether you have the margin for this or not, because the large contract, the actual E-mini costs about $235,000, I think, for one contract, and then leverage and whatnot, you can probably get it down to 20K, but micro is tenth of the value, so you have more access to it if you don't have the margin capability. So be aware, there are tools out there. CME, where it's traded, has it on their website, and you can always just go under specs and you can figure out what their actual quote is. In this case, it's going to be quarter point is 125, so it's $5 a full point, right? So that's for the S&P micro contract. So it's out there for you guys. Just be aware that it is a place to learn. Because it's different trading the spies versus trading the futures. I choose to trade the futures just because it's cleaner. I find it to be cleaner because on the spiders, it's the algorithms keeping it in line with the futures, right? So you're going to see a little bit of missed movement, sometimes delayed, sometimes over exaggerated movement in the S&P or the spiders versus the futures because of this. So I prefer to stay in on the future side of things. And I'm just putting it out there. So hopefully that's helpful. One trade that did pop up on my radar while Neil was talking there was Roblox. Roblox, New York stock, okay. 123 even. Now we got underneath it real quick. It snapped right back. But again, like everything else that's been traded today, I want to see how this trades below 123. Yes, we snapped underneath, but it just means that the volume is there to support it. If we can get underneath 123 and trade underneath, we need to trade underneath, and that's a critical thing here. 123, if we can actually get underneath, there might be a shot there. I'm not 100% ready to go on this, but I want to see more action. It's just something I want to put up on the radar. Maybe there's a trade there at some point before we close today.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you want to make sure you're looking at things like we said that are moving. Someone asked about a firm earlier, and I was like, in my head, I had gone over it because I looked at the stock and I actually had a couple of things I was going to say about it, and then I'm actually not sure that I did, so apologies there. Firm 136, now a triple top up here. It's only up a couple of percent, but that kind of belies, it doesn't really tell you the story because you did have the gap down, and it's made a full recovery. Just if you zoom out, and you look at when we had that flush on the 22nd, back on Monday, which seems like ages ago, you're going to watch this 138 level, which is pretty big. So that's where you put that caution into that kind of a breakout style trade. And again, it doesn't mean it's going to be absolute like gangbusters, like it's going to fail break if it goes through 36. It's just I immediately look up at 138 and say that's a scalp trade, at least on a portion of it, I would say. And then CCL will do this. That actually just broke the low of the day. And while that was happening, BFRI came back into earth at $7, and ISPC, which I said 25, I mean, whatever, 25 is a round number. Like when you're guessing at a high, which you're guessing at a high here, where I would think about a short, sometimes you get out because I was looking for that failure at a price at 24, but it wasn't enough for me to jump into the short. So you're going to see it pull back, but it doesn't look like it's done. It's consolidating right here and might still go. We still have one thing to do before we move it on to Trader Pratt and Ms. V. I think we know what National Day it is, but let's hear it anyways, Ms. V.
Hey guys, I hope you're all having a great day so far. Still 2 hours left in trading session today, so please join me and Trader Pratt to continue trading and discussing all the hottest stocks of the day. If you joined us for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and of course double check if you like this video. Your likes mean so much to us, guys. And yes, this is that time of the year, shopping time. Happy National Black Friday, everyone.
National Black Friday. I just want to say one thing. Obviously, this has turned into a massive shopping season for retailers, and it's just been marketed really well. It's no longer a Black Friday, though, because it's like the Black Friday starts as soon as November opens, and it's like leading up to pre-Black Friday sale. Something I caught my eye on Best Buy. They were, in Canada at least, they were willing to give you Black Friday prices earlier, say 2 weeks ago, and in the event that Black Friday prices were lower than the pre-Black Friday prices, they were willing to give you the difference back. So why are you gonna wait until Black Friday now? Now it's just shopping season. November is Black Friday month, but Black Friday is, I'm sure, has lost its meaning at this point. It's just a shopping season now. So here we are.
I tend to agree with you, but it's still, I don't know, I'm sure it's got some luster in it. You guys, I mean, obviously it's a bigger deal in the US, so you guys can let us know in the chat what it's more about there. But hey, I mean, it's still a thing. I mean, we don't celebrate Thanksgiving, like US Thanksgiving directly, but because we trade, we get the US holidays off. So I get to enjoy some football yesterday. I just don't, I don't do any of the festivities. Like, there's no turkey for me yesterday. In fact, we just had like a boring burger. But I was happy, and I've resisted saying it because I know you're not as big into football and all, like fantasy football and following the NFL. But my Bills handled business last night. So I'd be in a much different mood if the Bills had lost again. I'd probably, I'd be like, complaining and screaming and all that nonsense. But they handled their business, and things looking pretty good. I'm not happy, but to see that we're still halted on NRXP. So indicated open is $9, the current tap. I'm seeing absolutely no change here. I keep kind of checking back here, and it's not even like a resumption trade time. They had a resumption quote time like 52 minutes ago, but no trade. I have no idea when it's going to open up. I do know that if they don't open it up at all, so a volatility halt that manages to like somehow go right to the end of the day would be on a holiday, shortened day would be the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. But hopefully it opens up. If it does, looks like it's going to be with Trader Pratt and Ms. V, who are kicking you to right now. Enjoy.
Whoa, I didn't even know it was 11 o'clock. Okay, welcome back to Free Fall Friday. It is time for Memes and Movers. This is Miss V to my right.
Hey guys, welcome back everyone. Please be active on the chat as usual. Ask us anything, and we would really appreciate if you smash the like button. Prat, how's your trading day going?
I'm trying to open up the YouTube chat right now. I didn't even know it was 11 o'clock.
No worries.
My day's great, Miss V. How's your day?
My day was wonderful. I have a new spot for the morning show today. I really like that, but didn't really have a chance to trade today. Keeping an eye on Tesla, so probably we'll trade live with you guys.
All right, so let's